Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Koby's Choice by Sword of the Gods, Axe Hand. Morgan single-handedly shattered Koby's faith in the Marines, breaking his dreams. If a pirate is the first one to ever show you kindness in a world run by a corrupt justice, who do you follow? Well, the future king of the pirates, of course. I don't own anything. Adios.
We made it. Usopp huffed as the cliffs rose above them, Sarum's weight helping to increase their downward speed. That was the scariest part of the trip so far. Good thing we've got Sarum now. As if in response to the sniper's relief, a wave of lava poured over the cliff. It was too far away to do anything to the sunny other than heat the air around them, but the water currents were a different matter. The sudden heat shifted the natural flow of water, a new current buffeting the cephalopod underneath them. Whether through force or choice, the massive octopus let go, the water pulling him in a different direction. Ace jumped off Billy's back and raced to the railing, one hand outstretched toward the disappearing kraken. Sarumi. As Ace wept for the loss of his supposed pet, Coby turned a deadpan glare on the sniper. You just had to say something. Usopp's face turned a deep red with embarrassment as the rest of the group turned eyes on him. The hardest eyes for the sniper to meet were Ace's, the boy's brown starting to overflow with tears. He sniffled, betrayal on his face as if believing his uncle Usopp had caused Sarum to go away on purpose. The toddler refused to cry, however. His mother had told him that this adventure was for big boys and that big boys don't cry when things get hard. Remembering this, Ace's lower lip rose and his eyes almost widened as he willed himself to not cry, making a ridiculous face that did nothing to subtract from Usopp's guilty feeling.
Oh, Ace, Nami sighed, slipping into a motherly voice as she lowered herself to her knees to be eye level with her son. Ace ran into her outspread arms, still doing his best not to cry. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, hugging her tightly with all feelings of anger at her initial, no, forgotten. There. It's okay. We'll find him again.
Probably, she added silently, hoping the boy would forget all about the kraken by the time they stepped foot on Fishman Island. Luffy probably would, so it was a safe bet that their son would as well once he saw all the pretty lights and new things. Around the sunny, the bubble considerably smaller than when they started, the water began to lighten. The pirate's eyes, save the boy, were drawn to the massive root system just coming into view. The roots shone like a miniature sun, blanketing the seafloor with dancing rays of light. Underneath this illuminated flora was the largest bubble any of the pirates had ever seen, an entire island with its own pseudo-lake suspended within. Wow! Luffy exclaimed, running to the port side of the ship, and Frankie began steering them closer to their destination. That's so cool, look at that, Ace. Ace looked up, still sniffling a little, to see what his father wanted to show him. In a moment, his eyes widened, taking on a similar twinkle to Luffy's as the child took in the scene. Nami stood, carrying their son to where her husband stood. Pretty, Ace gasped, finally finding a word. It's true, Coby breathed. It's just like Rayleigh said. The trees are like telescopes, bringing light to the bottom of the ocean. That's wild, Amy agreed. I mean, I'd heard the stories from other pirates, but seeing it is a whole different thing. Jin flinched as if something shocked him, his head twisting to and fro before his eyes widened. I think we've got other things to worry about, he warned, pointing to several giant sea kings arraying themselves in front of the Sunny. They looked like land animals, specifically a lion, gorilla, giraffe, polar bear, rhino, and elephant. On the back of each was a fishman wielding a spear, the one in the lead with yellow skin and a cowboy hat, riding the giraffe sea king. We've got company. Kaku all but slammed into the front of the bubble, stars in his eyes, cutting off whatever the lead fishman was about to say. Giraffe. I want it. This was supposed to be a super-secret government agent? Grace questioned, her eyelids dropping in disappointment. Now I'm embarrassed for all of underground society. Have some dignity, will you? I know he said he loved giraffes, but this is a little much, Coby admitted. Everyone at Galila had something, Mary offered, her smile a little too tight. Most thought Kaku was the normal one, but that's because we didn't get giraffes too often. There would be days where he just wanted to be a giraffe and wouldn't change out of his beast form, even during work. Usopp blinked. Okay, that's not the weirdest thing we've seen, but what do we even do with this? He gestured to Kaku's squirming form. Frankie answered his call for help, a normal-sized hand coming out of the palm of his bigger hand to grab the zone by the scruff of the neck. Luffy and Ace couldn't help laughing. I'm sorry about him, Coby called to the fishmen outside the bubble, said Fishman looking incredibly confused. The dragon zone bowed. Though he is usually more composed than that, I'm afraid our companion has something of an obsession with giraffes. Please ignore him. Right, the yellow fishman muttered, shaking the thoughts from his mind. He leveled a trident at the ship. You lot are the Straw Hat Pirates, aren't you? You got us in a bit of a bind. See, you're the crew that ended Arlong's career and a lot of us looked up to him. But then Hachi, one of Arlong's crewmates, comes back and starts defending you up and down the streets, till he's blue in the gills. So tell us now, are you friends or enemies? Why can't we be friends? Luffy asked, no emotion or other meaning in his words. You've got a cool ride and we need a guide or something like that. Well, friend, the fishman grinned. My name is Hammond. Why don't we start off this new friendship with you all swearing your loyalty to the new fishman pirates, Honestly, that doesn't sound fun, Luffy replied, several of the crew smirking at his response. The fishmen, however, gawked at the blatant disregard of their mercy. Don't these humans understand they'll be killed if they don't join them? We're only passing through, but if you want to trade numbers, we can do that.
This guy is being real friendly. Another fishman hiccuped, this one a blue-ringed octopus with pink skin, black hair, and a bottle of sake that was still somehow intact despite being 10,000 meters below the ocean's surface. It kind of freaky.
I don't think I like your tone, Amy commented, idly tossing a pebble in her hand. Isn't Fishman Island territory of the reformed Whitebeard pirates? You should be careful. Our captain is a personal friend of Moby. They're right, a third fishman whispered. Boss made an announcement a few months ago about these guys. Boss ain't here, Hammond snapped. Listen up, either you join the new fishman pirates under Captain Hody or we pop your bubble and let you drown here. They're gonna kill us, Chopper screamed. Beside him, multiple metal flaps opened across Frankie's body, a dozen rockets prepped to fire at a mere thought. Whoa whoa whoa, Coby interjected, raising his arms and sending a quick glance to Nami before all the attention came to him. We can talk about this more. Usopp, go prep another coup to burst, the navigator ordered, the sniper disappearing in a blur while their antagonists were distracted. Do you human freaks think? How about you freaks listen? Jin demanded, lightning arching off his dreadlocks as he interrupted the leading fishman. Y'all come out of nowhere ta threaten us and why think that's fine? We're crew OTH, future king. Be careful what y'all the next. Violence begets violence, and, if and we go down, we're talking y'all with us. The threat made the fishmen back up, the electricity scaring even their sea kings. Laughter bubbled. Geehehe, Ace giggled, bringing his existence to the humanoid's attention. Uncle Jin's real Skawi. He's the one dat stole powers FWUM a god. A god? The question bounced through their enemies' ranks, the electric devil's smirk widening. You can't do that, the yellow fishman on the giraffe sea king snarled. You'd pop tried. Even if you did have a shock strong enough to kill us, you'd kill your crewmates too. Are y'all sure about that? The lightning monk asked, his eyes taking on a sinister glint. Frankie, the escape preparations are prepared. Robin's voice whispered from a mouth that had bloomed on one of his shoulders. Her message came only a second before the ship herself shuddered. Ready. The cyborg kept an eye on their adversaries as his rocket slowly retreated into his form. The man inching toward the wheel while Jin kept them distracted and questioning themselves. We're going to Fishman Island, so I'm sure we'll see each other again. Mary smiled as their shipwright reached his goal, pressing the needed buttons. Why don't we continue this later after some sightseeing? Right now, though, we need you to get out of the way. You dare, punch it, Sonny, the Klabouterman interrupted, punching the air herself. Coup. De burst, Frankie finished, pulling the lever. With an explosion of force that left a bubble behind, the 1,000 Sunny rocketed through the aquatic group, two of them bouncing off the Atom Wood Hall and spinning off in a daze. Within seconds, Sunny's figurehead pushed through the bubble surrounding the underwater island, leaving her coating behind and sailing through a vast expanse of fresh air. A second bubble the pirates hadn't seen before straight ahead of them. This one, however, contained a small ocean or very large lake's worth of water. A mass the ship was flying straight toward. It's a two-layered bubble, Brooke realized. That's not good, Grace yelled. Everyone brace for impact, Nami warned. The Straw Hat Pirates screamed as they reached the waters of Fishman Island, everything turning to pain as they were forcefully submerged. Nami felt Ace getting pulled from her arms by the current, his small silhouette disappearing into the water. The water ripped away her scream as everything went black. Look at you, a voice muttered, Jin's eyes flickering as his senses returned. He sat up with a groan, but there was a surprising lack of pain. His surroundings were nothing but an expanse of white in every direction and he couldn't tell if the floor he was sitting on was soft or hard. Pathetic. Yeah, bite me, the monk hissed, turning his body to face himself. More accurately, it was Rum in a recreation of his image, clad in a three-piece suit rather than the robes Jin favored, in antithesis. Where Jin had been forced to get over his nicotine addiction, Rum smoked freely, grinning around a fat cigar. Where Jin's hair was braided into cornrows, Rum's was smoothed back into a well-kept ponytail. What do you want, ya sophisticated bastard? The same thing I always want, my dear fool, Rum responded, sitting in a velvet chair and crossing his legs. The alternate personality grinned, swirling a glass of, ironically, gin in his hand. I want you to relinquish control of our body to me, forever. Go suck a gods, Jin shot back, jumping to his feet. Ya couldn't beat me before and ya still can't beat me now. This is my body, and you ain't welcome. You continue to resist, but you know it's futile, Rum said, looking up from her glass. You can only fight for so long when you battle me and those outside. I have only one fight to face. You will wear down eventually. That's what you think, the pirate snarled. Ya don't scare me like ya used to, Rum. I will protect my crew, till day I die, and when that day comes, I'm talking ya with me. It's almost funny that you believe that, almost because you actually do. Be forewarned, Jin, the moment you hit your limit, the moment you show me an opening, I will take hold of this body of ours and you will be unable to stop me. I refuse to let your limited ideas bind us to a life of servitude to anyone, much less the moron you have given the title of Don. Under our power, my power, the world will become our oyster. It's just a shame you won't be around to see it. He frowned, his head turning without any change in his expression. Well, it seems our time is up for this round. Go on, meet. Your friends are waiting. Jin made to respond, only for a low buzzing that had been on the fringes of his hearing to rise in volume exponentially. The world faded, only for Jin to bolt upright in a world of color. You're awake, a familiar female voice called. Jin blinked, the world around him spinning in a blur of color that threatened to give him a headache. A second later allowed him to clear his vision and thoughts, his gaze focusing on the half-human half-fish form of Koby. Where am I? He asked, shaking the cobwebs from his head. He was sure the laughter echoing in his ears was his own imagination. Probably. Koby? I'm not dead, am I? Not at all. The mermaid smiled. I heard a crash outside my house and found you, Luffy Chin, and Frankie Chin in the hangout square outside. It was lucky you all landed nearby since you and Luffy Chin can't swim.
Where is everyone? We don't know, Frankie's voice answered, his bulky form appearing behind the green-haired mermaid. His mechanized body seemed to fill the whole room and there were 5 tiny mermaids clinging to his shoulders and arms. Swimming while carrying you and Luffy is super tough work, you know. And we don't know where the Sunny is, either.
She can defend herself, Jin waved off, taking in what parts of the room he could see. It was a mix of a bedroom and kitchenette. The bed on a dry floor and the kitchenette with a flooded area for Koby to swim as she prepared food. The bed, which Jin himself laid on, also had Luffy on the other side, their captain still unconscious for the time being. That's right, Koby clapped. Your ship is alive or something, right? Hatchin said something about that before. Their ship is alive? One of the little mermaids asked. It's alive, another yelled. It's not alive, a third commented. Maybe it's alive, the fourth shrugged. Who cares if it's alive? The fifth mermaid muttered. And these are? Jin wondered aloud. Oh, Koby realized. I'll probably introduce them again once Luffy Chin wakes up. But these are the Medaka mermaid quintuplets. They're good friends of mine. Their names are Ichika, Nika, Sanka, Yanka, and Yanka too. I'm Ichika. I'm Nika. I'm Sanka. I'm Yanka. I'm Yanka too. Why are there 2 Yankas? Jin asked. Where is Octo Bro anyway? Frankie wondered. I'm not sure, Koby admitted. Hatchin went to the Fishman district a few weeks ago and hasn't come back since. I'm a little worried about him, but Hatchin's tough. He grew up there, after all. Ace. Luffy yelled, bolting upright in the bed. Everyone else jumped, Koby actually falling into the water in the kitchen. Luffy blinked, using his observation haki to take in his surroundings. Ace isn't here. He's safe, though, Frankie assured, pulling a device out of his arm and handing it to the captain. Nami had me make a way to check Ace's health in case anything happened. He's got a bracelet keeping track of his vitals. Luffy stared at the screen and all the various readings, each one's meaning unknown to him. Frankie seemed to pick up on this, his smaller hand coming out of his palm to point at a certain circle with a red line. As long as this line is going up and down, Ace is alive, he explained. Ooh, Luffy nodded, thankful for the layman's terms. Well, as long as he's safe, I don't see why we can't enjoy ourselves for a little bit. Where are we? This is my apartment, Luffy Chin, Koby answered, swimming out from behind the hulking figure of Frankie. Sorry, I know I was supposed to come get you all at Sabaody, but I thought that was next month. Nah, it's fine, Luffy waved off. We're here now and my son is alive, so everything's alright. That's good, Koby smiled, only for her face to suddenly contort, her eyes widening while her tongue stuck out in shock. You have a son, Luffy Chin? I know, right? Jin essentially echoed. And what's with that mindset, Don? It's like, oh, that's how our family is. Well, I guess WG, Luffy said, stretching his arms and hopping out of bed. Ace is out there somewhere and I need to find him and the rest of the crew. Follow me, then, Koby offered, opening a door to a balcony, the air in the apartment expanding into a bubble. Hopping outside, the mermaid whistled, a sea turtle with a bubble on its shell rising from below. Sea turtle elevator, Jin read from the lettering on the turtle's shell, the bubbles just barely touching each other. Kami jumped from one to the other without a moment's pause, the pirates and the quintuplets following. "Take us to the surface, Mr. Sea Turtle," Kami said, "they're Mount Rising. I'll show you all the most popular hangout for mermaids. I'm sure they'll help you look." "The mermaids will help. They'll help, they won't help. Maybe they'll help. Who cares if they help? So, Jin muttered, squished against Frankie in the tight space. "Is that normal fare them?" "Who?" Kami blinked. "Defiva, them," he answered, gesturing to the quintuplets. "It's normal for us. It's normal, it's not normal."
"Maybe it's normal. Who cares if it's normal? Wake the hell up, long neck," Amy demanded, the smack from her hand hitting Kaku's cheek echoing through the alleyway. He responded instinctively, shifting into his man-beast form while reaching for his swords. Amy responded in kind, a hockey-coated umbrella catching both blades easily. "Calm down. We made it to Fishman Island."
"Where are we?" the former agent asked, his adrenaline fading as he shifted out of his transformation. "What happened? I remember we were suddenly zoom in and hit the bubble, but it's fuzzy after that." "Those fishmen from before threatened us," the woman explained, squeezing water out of her cake-themed dress now that Kaku's swords were down, though she'd lost her hat in the crash. "We managed to get away with a coup de burst, but the island has 2 bubbles around it and we hit the second one under the waterline around the island. Usopp managed to grab us and swim to the island. He's out scouting the area right now." "That explains why I'm soaked," Kaku commented, noting the puddle at his feet. "How long do we have until Long Nose gets back?" "Anytime now." True to Amy's prediction, Usopp blurred into view at the end of the alley, his back pressed against one of the building's stone walls. He was panting, his face colored a deep shade of red. Fearing the worst, both ex-assassins hurried to his side. "That was pretty fast," Kaku praised, "almost as fast as Shave." "Where the hell did that human go?" a voice asked, a duo of fishmen running past the entrance of the alley. "Where are we, Usopp?" Amy asked. "Who are those guys?" We. Usopp struggled. There's bad, well and not bad, but I don't, it's. "Come on, Usopp," Amy pressed. "We don't have time for this." We're in the SSX district," Usopp managed, covering his eyes and muttering to himself. "I've seen things. So many things. I'm sorry, Kaya. I was saving myself for you." "That's what's got your boxers in a twist," Kaku blinked. "Why are you stuttering and blushing like a schoolgirl?" Amy demanded, smacking Usopp upside the head. "It's just the red light district. Every major island has one." "Oh, wait, I forgot. You're a virgin, kya ha ha ha." "Not so loud," Usopp whispered over her laughter, his cheeks on fire. "Stop it, I mean, I haven't exactly had any chances I just think it's so funny." Amy continued to laugh. "You're older than Luffy, but he's already married with a kid while you're still a little cherry boy, kya ha ha ha." "Oh yeah?" Usopp demanded, a sinister smirk growing. "At least my long-distance relationship is working. And how are things with you and Jin?"
Amy froze, slowly turning an evil eye on the sniper.
"We don't talk about that," the blonde hissed, grabbing Usopp by the suspenders and dragging him close. "If you ever bring that up again, I'll feed you to the Sea Kings before you can even cry for mercy." "Hypocrite," Usopp wheezed. "I think we need to cool our jets for a hot sec," Kaku offered, stepping between the squabbling shipmates. "I don't know any of the details of your love lives, except for what I've gotten from Mary, but that don't do a thing for us now. We're in an unknown locale and I've been split from the group. In addition to that, there are folks looking for humans. We got 3 options. Make a base, find higher ground, or make a commotion to bring the others here." "I do not want to stay here," Usopp offered instantly, one hand raised. "Cherry boy," Amy coughed. Kaku sighed, pinching the bridge of his square nose. Right now, they needed information, and the red light district is one of the places where someone knows everything, if you can find them. It had been a few years, but the former agent still had the training to deal with areas like this. "Since you can't stop squabbling, I'll go get us some information. A map, a few names of people in power, the major factions, stuff like that." "There aren't any humans," Usopp offered. "Your giraffe form might attract less attention, but I'm not sure." "Good tip," the zone nodded, shifting into his man-beast form. He towered over them, which could be a hindrance, but he supposed it might be better than just walking around as a human. He glanced around the corner, taking in the sight of the busy street, a mixture of drunken patrons, alert guards, and certain businesses trying to sell their special services. His gaze followed the flow, tracking down the ones in the most expensive clothing. His eyes were drawn to a 3-story building near the middle of the street. A man, who seemed to be part swordfish, was in the process of getting kicked out. "You really can't make yourself any smaller?" Amy asked, Kaku feeling a tick form on his forehead at the question. "I am a giraffe," Kaku hissed, bending his neck to stare his fellow blonde in the eye. "No, I can't just make myself smaller."
"No, but doing that might help," Usopp noted, indicating the way Kaku had his neck bent. Kaku shrugged, accepting the idea.
Don't do anything careless, the zone warned before taking a breath and stepping out into the street. Calling on his years as an assassin of CP9, Kaku blended into the crowd naturally, only dragging the occasional eye of some stumbling drunk. I need a better spot, Amy muttered, lowering her mass and jumping from wall to wall in the small alley before Usopp could get a word in edgewise, leaving him in the shadows as she reached the roof above. From there, she followed her fellow blonde's progress through the crowd. He approached a building colored a deep red, a pair of burly bouncers standing on either side of a red felt rope. They eyed the giraffe as he neared, one clearly confused. Howdy, Kaku muttered, stopping before them. I'm new to the area and looking for some fun. Got any suggestions for me? You've come to the right place, the bouncer that wasn't looking at him funny answered. You've come to Madame Finwater's Tales of the Night. Whatever you're looking for, you can find in here, even humans. Whatever I'm looking for? Kaku asked, his eyebrows raising. Anything? Not anything, the other guard amended. We don't have any giants or most humanoids like long arms, but you know what we mean. Looks like a first-class place. What's the cost to get in? That depends, the first guard spoke up. It costs 10,000 to get in, but drinks cost extra and the girls have their own prices. That is, if you don't have something juicy for Madame Finwaters. Kaku leaned in, covering his mouth from outside onlookers and lowering his voice. Neither Amy or Usopp heard any of the conversation from their individual hiding places, but they did see Kaku whisper something to the bouncer, causing the fishman's eyes to widen before he abandoned his post to run into the building. The other bouncer fixed Kaku with a glare, asking something. Based on his lips, Amy guessed he said, "Who are you?" The zone simply smiled, waiting for the first man to return. He returned in a matter of mom grabbing one side of the felt rope. The bouncer opened the path, bowing slightly. Madame Finwaters will see you now. Kaku smirked, glancing over his shoulder to make eye contact with Amy and Usopp, his eyes telling them to stay put or find a way in. What do you think? Usopp asked right next to Amy. Amy jumped, every ounce of her willpower keeping her from screaming. She hadn't even heard Usopp move. She didn't know what sort of training he'd had, but he was a lot faster than he had been 2 years ago. Don't do that, she hissed, refraining from punching him in the arm. You scared the life out of me. How are we supposed to get in there? Usopp asked, ignoring the woman's glare. I'm not fast enough to get past those guys without them seeing me. We don't have to, Amy answered, grabbing Usopp's nose to direct his eyes toward the alleyway beside Tales of the Night. If we can get there, we can get in through the roof or one of the windows. Sounds like a plan, Usopp agreed, shaking. Let's find everyone. Ace, Nami yelled, all thoughts of her soaked appearance gone as she ran through some sort of park, dodging trees while calling for her child at the top of her lungs. The ocean lake around the island extended to her left, the shore passing as she continuously noted that her son was not there. Ace, where are you? Nami, please, Brook wheezed as he tried to follow the worried navigator. Though he didn't have lungs, the skeleton sounded out of breath, the pirate trying to shake water out of his guitar. Had it not been specially made, it would have been ruined. I'm sure he's safe.
But you don't know that. The mother growled, rounding on the musician so fast he almost slammed into her fist. My son isn't even 2 and he's lost somewhere on this unfamiliar island. Damn it. I should have been holding that status I had Frankie make. Every second he's not in my arms is another one where he could be getting killed by some horrible fishman.
My word, Nami, Brook gasped, one hand over where his heart would have been. I didn't think you would be so biased against people you haven't met. This is the safety of my child we're talking about, Brook. You don't know how much I'd suffered at the hands of fishmen before Luffy found me, and I will not let anyone do anything to my baby or so help me Goda. I will tear this island apart to get my revenge. Now get your bony ass back to searching before I rip you apart so you can be in multiple places. She turned from the now cowering undead, picking up her pace once more as she resumed her search. Who's there? A new voice called through the trees, years of being a thief causing Nami to shove her back against the closest tree. Brook followed, clearly unaware of the meaning of stealth. Yo, Brook began, only for the navigator to punch him in the skull. He dropped as she moved, resettling in a new hiding spot while rubbing her injured knuckles. A squad of 5 fishmen moved into the area, each in matching sets of armor made from coral and sea king bone. They zeroed in on the fleshless remains, one pulling out a trident and poking Brook in the arm. The skeleton didn't react. That's weird, one of the men commented. I thought I heard a woman's voice. And this body has to have been here for a long time to be like this, another soldier added, getting down on one knee to examine the be-afroed corpse. That's not possible since this is a relatively popular area on the weekends. Based on the clothes and shape, I'd say human, but the quality and state of the clothes doesn't agree with the stage of decay. The clothes are soaked, and the bones are picked clean. I'd ordinarily guess this is the work of a piranha fishman, but there are no teeth marks. You're really putting that FIU education to work, rookie, an older soldier laughed. I got my master's for a reason, Dave. This thing looks familiar, the 4th soldier muttered, scratching his head as he tried to understand why he recognized the pile of bones. Maybe it was the afro. I can't believe you guys left me, a sixth soldier grumbled, stepping into the group. Over his shoulder was a limp male form with a shock of pink hair and a pair of crossed swords. This human is heavier than he looks, he's dense. In more ways than one, yo-ho-ho. The 6 guards jumped back as Brook shifted, his bones rattling as he laughed. Light on his feet as ever, Brook jumped to his feet and dusted off his pants. Each of the guards aimed their tridents or spears at the musician, but the skeleton barely reacted. "What are you?" Dave demanded. "What do you want?" "Please, relax," Brook replied, tuning his guitar by ear, which is funny since he doesn't have any ears. "I assure you I'm not your enemy, unless you happen to work for the new Fishman pirates, seeing as they threatened my crew as we came in. It was quite the conundrum, you know. Now, if you would be so kind, please allow me to wake my crewmate from his slumber." "You know this guy?" the one carrying Coby asked.
Indeed I do, Brook nodded. "Oh dear me, I haven't properly introduced myself. A pleasure to meet you. The warrior on your shoulder is Coby, and I am the gentlemanly skeleton Brook, though you might know me by the name Soul King."
"That's it," one of the soldiers realized. "You're that famous new singer. What are you doing here on Fishman Island?" "My crew got into something of a skirmish as we tried to enter," Brook explained, testing some chords on his reed-tuned instrument. "A group of pirates tried to force us into servitude to them, but we didn't have the means to defend ourselves underwater. As such, we were forced to take the faster and more disastrous way in." Brook strummed a particularly loud G chord, the sound causing Coby to awaken and flail, falling to the ground. "I wasn't me, I didn't eat the last bag of chips," the Rossett trailed off as his eyes came into focus. "Oh, hello? Oh, are you Tryhorn, Coby?" The soldier that had been silent up to that point realized. "That means you all are the Straw Hats, right?" That depends," the swordsman responded quickly. "What happens if I say yes?" "We'll bring you to the Ryugu Palace and prepare a feast for you to celebrate your arrival," the soldier answered. "Mr. Moby and Boss have been waiting for you all to come through for the past few months and we want to see if you live up to the hype." "I still think I heard a woman's voice," the first fishman reaffirmed. "That would have been me," Nami revealed, stepping out from behind the tree she'd used as a hiding spot. "Cat burglar, monkey D Nami, and we aren't going to the castle anytime soon." "Why not?" Coby blinked, his head tilting in confusion. "These guys aren't hostile." "Indeed, we aren't," the educated soldier reaffirmed. Nami didn't take kindly to either of them, whipping her perfect clean attack to the right. There was a pulse of air that ruffled the clothes of everyone in the area, a tree splitting diagonally from a clean cut through its trunk. Nami was silent, the tree noisily crashing to the ground. "Listen up, all of you," she hissed, seeming to loom over everyone, human, skeleton, and fishman alike. "I'm in charge now, and we aren't going to the palace until my son is in my arms again." "You have a son?" Dave asked. "Is that a problem?" "And no," the fishman answered, trying to come up with an excuse. "You just look really good for having a kid." "Ah, thank you. Now move, thanks for your help," Mary grinned, throwing up a peace sign toward those she was thanking. Billy, dripping with seawater, panted beside her while trying to shake himself dry. Robin laid at their feet, still unconscious but breathing. "I mean, Billy and I could have handled it, but still." "Not a problem at all," the lead mermaid, a beautiful woman with wavy black hair, responded. "We'd do the same for anyone." "Say, are you all pirates?" a red-haired mermaid asked, saddling up beside Mary. The woman raised one arm, her fingers brushing against the Klabouterman's chin. "Just curious." "Oh," the ship girl squirting a deep red that contrasted with her white hair. Yeah? Wah," Billy blinked, confused. "That's hot. I've got a thing for pirates." The mermaid leaned in, her chest pressing against Mary's while their faces became only inches apart. "Got any plans, later?" Mina, the lead mermaid warned. "Come on, Ishili," the ginger pouting cutely in response, pulling away to look back. "Just one little spin. I want to give this cute little lamb a good first impression. There are just some things you can't find anywhere except here." "Maybe later," Mary denied, sliding back. "More importantly, I'm worried since Robin isn't awake yet." "Wah," Billy agreed, startled at the reminder. The duck rushed to the girl's sides, shoving one ear against Robin's chest. "Is she okay, Billy?" Mary asked, trusting that the intelligent bird knew what he was doing. She knelt by Robin's head, checking her for welts or bruises. Billy visibly relaxed after a moment, turning his head to shove his beak into Robin's abdomen, pushing. "Goo!" Robin jerked as if she had been shocked, coughing up water. She rolled over, her lungs discharging all the liquid they'd taken in, though it wasn't a life-threatening amount. "Easy," Mary muttered, pulling Robin's long hair out of her face. "That was not a pleasurable experience," the archaeologist moaned, pushing herself into an upright position. "Thank you, Mary, Billy. What is the current situation?" "You're at the Mermaid Cove," the red-haired mermaid, Mina, answered, hopping up onto the rocky crag the raven-haired woman was resting on. Her red tail waved slowly as she leaned in. Welcome to Fishman Island. So you're Robin, right? Your eyes are beautiful. I can't help getting lost in them. Mina. The other mermaid sighed, covering her face with one hand. Come on, beautiful, Mina winked, grabbing one of Robin's hands. Give me a chance. I know this amazing spot down by the forest with the most amazing trees and a big black cube that's a national treasure. It's a popular SP. Big black cube? Mary and Robin parroted, leaning close. Oh yes, Mina smirked. No one can read it, but couples love going down and making their own guesses. Care to go on a date there with me? I will gladly accompany you, Robin answered, accepting the offer. If that cube fits your description, then it is, in all likelihood, a poneglyph. I have begun teaching Mary how to read them. Oh, so you're the smart type, Mina grinned, leaning up so her lips brushed by Robin's ear. That's such a turn on. Goddammit, Mina, Ishili groaned, her face in her hands. Can't you go one day without flirting with pirates? Oh, lighten up, Ishili, it's just some harmless fun. Can we get going? Mary asked. Wah, Billy protested, gesturing with his wings in a pattern Mary did not recognize. Wah, wah, wah. I see, Robin nodded. Billy wishes to know where the others are, since you have a sense for that. You speak duck, Mary gasped. No, the devil fruit user blinked. That was ASL, animal sign language. An associate of mine uses crows as messengers, so I learned the basics of it. That's so cool. As for the others. Mary tilted her head, focusing on her mantra. Let's see, Luffy, Jin, and Frankie are pretty close. Nami and Brooke are near town, I think. Wait, there's Coby with them. Zoro, Grace, Chopper, and Ace are somewhere to the west of here. Usopp and Amy are to the north, but I can't feel Sunny or Sanji. Wah, Billy saluted before taking off, flapping his wings as he flew to the west. Oh, Mary blinked. He ditched us. I would never do that, Mina offered. Down, Ishili ordered with a smack to the back of the thirsty mermaid's head, though her admonishment had no effect. More likely, he's probably going to find Ace, Robin commented, standing up to stretch. Well, it appears we have acquired some free time before things spiral out of control and we either die while taking the island with us in a blazing inferno or run out of town lest we be massacred, so why don't we head to the poneglyph? I really hope you aren't being prophetic, Robin, Mary sighed. In any case, the crew can take care of themselves. We can't miss this opportunity to learn more of our lost history. My head, Grace groaned, fingers slipping through her soaked hair and her palms pressing against her forehead in a vain attempt to ease the pain there. With a thought, her brain started releasing dopamine to counter the headache, though that wasn't enough to fix it. What just happened? Auntie Grace? A little voice questioned, the thief's eyes snapping open at the sound. Her head twisted, finding Ace sitting on the sand only a few steps away. His big eyes blinked at her. Where are we? I don't know, the young woman admitted, hastily scooping the child into her arms. Once he was secure against her hip, she took a moment to observe the land around them. It was dark, buildings on the edge of her vision made of some sort of algae-covered sea stone. There was sand under her shoes, the fine crystals as dark as the depths beyond the protective double bubble. Don't you worry, Ace. Auntie Grace will protect you. K. He paused, his eye growing as wide as apples, his small hands reaching up to his black hair. Hat's gone. Your hat? Grace asked, a hint of nostalgia touching her as she remembered her own hats back when she first joined the crew. Yeah, hat. Daddy gave me hat and said was Daddy's Bewethers. I'll help you find your hat, Grace promised, her grip keeping him from wiggling away from her to go looking on his own. I bet your mommy or one of your aunts or uncles has your hat right now. Promise? Pinky promise, Grace vowed. Pinky promise? What's that? You do it like this, Grace answered, her and the little boy curling their pinkies around each other's. When you make a pinky promise, it's the most binding promise, and you can never ever break it. Never ever forever. Never ever forever, the boy echoed. With the promise made, Ace visibly calmed down, now certain that he would have hat back soon. Something splashed in the water behind them, the art thief spinning to locate the sound with a swirling ball of argon gas in her hand. A head of green hair appeared with a gasp, Zoro breathing heavily as he hoisted Chopper out of the water. Uncle Zoro, damn it, Zoro growled, tossing the reindeer doctor onto the sand where he sputtered and coughed, getting water out of his lungs. That crash made me lose my booze. Damn it, Ace echoed. Damn it, booze. Zoro, Grace growled, walking over with the cursing baby. I'm not taking the fall for this one. Oh come on, the swordsman complained. Why does he only pick out those words? Because he's heard everything else, Grace responded, setting Ace beside the drenched doctor. Ace giggled, putting his hands on Chopper's stomach and rolling him back and forth. Choppy no sleepy. No sleep, Choppy. Nay, Uncle Zoro, I'm hungry. Me too, bud, Zoro replied, taking his long coat off to wring it out. Where the H? Where are we? Somewhere on Fishman Island, Grace answered. We don't know where the others or the Sunny are, and I'm sure Nami and Luffy are gonna be going nuts over Ace being missing. I'm not missing, the boy protested, pointing to himself. I'm white here. But your parents aren't, Zoro pointed out as Chopper gasped, taking in his first full lungful of breath since they arrived. Alright, Ace, let's take stock. What can you do? I know things, the young boy offered immediately, like a Stross fur ic fee no mena. Mommy says I talk real good well, for my age. And Otto Woban started showing me letters for this old language, and I'm real good at coloring. I stay in the lines mostly, except when that's boring, but map lines are super duper fun. And I've been practicing my jumping. Ace jumped as hard as he could straight up, though it was more like a hop seeing as he only went about 6 inches up. Mommy says I'll be able to jump wheel high like daddy soon, and I S's now. Yeah, that's great, Zoro muttered, the boy not picking up the hesitation in the swordsman's voice. I think those are some great skills, Ace, Grace smiled, picking up the boy again, only to set him on Zoro's shoulders. How about you ride here and watch your Uncle Zoro, just to help keep him from getting lost? I don't get lost, the Verde denied, even as Ace yelled, okay. Is everyone okay? Chopper demanded, pulling out some emergency medical gear. No major injuries? Maybe not yet, a nasally voice laughed, a whole group of fishmen stepping out of the shadows of one of the nearby buildings. What's a bunch of humans doing by the Fishman district without colors? Captain Hody don't want your kind walking around free, you know. Hold on and close your eyes, Ace, Zoro growled, pulling out Kitetsu 3 and Yubashiri. This could get messy. Sanji groaned, rolling over onto his side from where he laid on the floor. There was a small puddle of red where he had been a moment before, the world still fuzzy and indistinct through his eyes. Nothing looked familiar and a headache pounding against the inside of his skull wasn't helping matters. In his confusion, the blonde didn't notice a snail slip out of his pocket as he pushed himself onto all fours, taking a deep breath before standing. Sanji wobbled, his feet unsteady as the world spun. The floor was slanted, though it shouldn't have been. His surrounding, a kitchen based on context clues, wasn't familiar. As a matter of fact, nothing was familiar and nothing seemed to click. My name is Sanji, the cook muttered aloud, his native accent present. I cook? Yeah, I think I cook. I need to keep my hands safe. I travel with. He trailed off, pulling a blank. I travel with. Where am I? Though he asked his question, no answer came, the kitchen dark and empty. His headache still going, the chef shuffled to the door. He jiggled the doorknob but it didn't open, the door apparently locked. Confused and annoyed, because who wants to wake up in an unknown locked room, Sanji rifled through the cabinets. He didn't find anything useful and was about ready for kick the door down when he heard the click of the lock unlocking itself. Now on guard more than ever, he stepped out onto the grass deck. The salty smell of the ocean met him first, the sounds of small waves reaching him a second later. The ship was tilted at an angle, making walking more difficult than it needed to be. With no idea what to do now, Sanji decided that staying and waiting was not an option. Clearly he had come here with people and he needed to find them, somehow. Raw instincts honed from years of practice kicked in before Sanji could even comprehend the situation, the chef kicking into and off the air before the ropes that came down from the rigging could reach him. More ropes came after, forcing the cook to act without thinking as he dodged around them in midair. After several minutes, Sanji landed on the soft sand out of the ship's range. Tears leaked from the sunflower-shaped figurehead. At least, it looked like a sunflower to him. While more whimpers echoed through her hull. Being a ship, however, the sentient being was unable to turn or come after him. Sanji was just fine with that. Why would he stay with the thing that attacked him the instant he stepped outside? No, he had more important things to handle, like figuring out where he was or who he was traveling with. Nodding to that logic, the blonde set off, walking along the shoreline whilst the ship called for him in vain. What's this? The rough voice of a blue fishman rumbled, said Fishman's eyebrows rising as a certain orange hat washed ashore off to his right. He turned, picking it up to study its buttons. The many other fishmen and mermaids working in the port barely glanced his way. Well, that's ominous, but knowing this hat, I'd say they're all fine. Today is the day. He grinned, pulling a Den Den Mushi from his pocket. It rung only once before connecting. Goldfish. Well, you got news. Yeah, they're here, but they didn't come the normal way. Are you ready for a little collateral damage? I wish we didn't have to be. I guess we'll go round them up. Got any guesses about where they are? I'd try Mermaid Cove or the Fishman District. Those seem like likely spots, unless they're shopping. You don't actually know, do you? Well, would you look at that? I have a hat to return. Huh, Zoro grunted, glancing around at all the downed fishmen that had attacked them only a moment ago. Ace was so light on his shoulders, the swordsman practically forgot he was there, save for the hand that was pressed tightly to his forehead holding the child in place. You know, you'd think they'd be stronger since so many pirates come though. I'm disappointed, Grace huffed, sitting atop a group of crying, paralyzed fishmen stacked in a pyramid. I thought I was going to get to strut my stuff, but these guys all fell for the same trick. It does make sense, Chopper offered, shrinking back into his brain point. We spent an extra 2 years training compared to the average pirate that comes through. Geehehe, Ace giggled, his little heels hitting Zoro's chest as they swung. My fam Ilee's just too strong. Well, when you put it that way. Grace grinned, jumping from the stack. Anyway, I say we leave these guys here and go. I don't know where we are at the moment. She paused, turning around to grab a blue fishman by the fin on his head. The fishman grunted in pain as the young woman yanked his face up. Hey Guppy, where are we? You'll get nothing from me, you human bitch, the fishman spat. Chopper gasped, shifting into his jump point for the height it gave him to cover Ace's ears. When Captain Hody gets you. Yeah, I don't care about that, Grace interrupted, giving his head a shake. Now you're going to tell us where we are and which way takes us to the center of town, or I'm going to make you feel like all the happiness in your life has been nothing but a wistful daydream that you'll never have again. The fishman smirked painfully. Do your worst. No member of the new fishman pirates would ever break against the pathetic little threats of a human. Right, Grace muttered, tapping the sides of her suit. As she did, little bubbles of blue and white grew, floating into the air so everyone could see them. Sadness blue, one of my oldest techniques, and intense ivory, a new creation. When you blend them together, you get a beautiful color I've lovingly named Blue Songbird. As everyone watched, the two bubbles met in midair, seeming to wrestle and twist until they were blended perfectly into a sort of darker light blue. The ball they created was smaller than the length of a fingernail, but it almost seemed to glow in the dim light. Grace snapped, the bubble twisting into the shape of a bird. Why is it C called that? The fishman asked, a bead of sweat rolling down his forehead as the paint bird landed on the tip of Grace's finger. Because everyone I've ever used it on has sung like a canary, she explained. See, the intense ivory causes every single one of your nerves to go into overdrive to the point of clothing being painful. At the same time, the sadness blue sucks away every bit of dopamine and serotonin your brain produces, leaving you with only the worst emotions against your hypersensitive nerves. Shall we? That's sadistic, Chopper gasped, unable to see Zoro's smirk. Grace knelt down before the sweating fishman, glancing over at the other conscious foes she'd defeated. Any of you want to save your friend? If you tell us what we want to know, no one gets tortured. You're sick, a different fishman, this one with gray skin and a shark fin, growled. All you humans are the same. You beat and enslave any race except yourselves because you think you're better. Well, you aren't. Fishmen are the superior race. We will. Watching the shark fishman with half-lidded eyes, Grace flicked the blue songbird at him, the bird coming to rest on his nose before settling into a 2D picture on his brow. The effect was nearly instant, every nerve in his body going into overdrive. At the same time, the chemicals in the blue paint did their work, sucking away any happiness he felt at that moment. With everything save good left behind, the supercharged nerves had only pain to report, every touch making the man scream. Some superior race you are, Grace commented. There's a child present, Chopper yelled. Grace ignored him. You're too loud, she muttered, punching the shark in the face. His eyes crossed as he fell over, unconscious. Anyone else want to argue? There's a P Plaza 15 minutes down the R road, an angelfish fishman stuttered, his small body having transparent skin. Go behind that building and take a right. Don't stop till you see the sun. Now was that so hard? Grace smiled, drawing out a couple new paints. They fused into a pink bird the same size the blue songbird had been. For that, you'll get a nice reward, positivity. The paint bird recreated the flight of the first, landing on the cowering angelfish's nose. He screwed his eyes shut, waiting for pain, only for his eyes to widen and cross as every good feeling he could have happened at once. Wow, Zoro whistled. What are you, a drug dealer? Oh, shut up. The girl shot back. Like I haven't heard that one before. Come on, let's get out of here. Not that way. Zoro froze mid-step, his foot hovering over the water. Chopper sighed, shifting into his walk point. Let me carry Ace, the doctor offered, trotting up beside the swordsman. If you take a wrong turn, you and Ace could end up totally separated from us. It'd be better for us if you just wandered off by yourself. What's that supposed to mean? Zoro demanded. Actually, I'm gonna agree with Chopper on this one, Grace commented. You're the one who put him on my shoulders in the first place. And I'm the one who's gonna take him off, the artist shot back, hooking her hands under Ace's arms. She pulled him down, setting him on Chopper's back. She turned to Zoro once more. There's no chance you won't get lost, so keep an eye out for Ace's hat, MMK. You're pretty bossy now, Zoro grumbled. The phrase you're looking for is, possessing leadership confidence, Grace corrected, as if she were quoting some sort of synergy workshop. Whatever. Let's just go find everyone else. The green-haired swordsman turned around, walking the correct way. Chopper and Grace glanced at each other, walking behind him. He's gonna vanish behind that building, isn't he? The redhead asked. I once watched him lose his way in a straight hallway, the doctor replied. He's Chopper blinked. Where'd he go? Uncle Zowo went poof and swoop. Ace offered, emphasizing his onomatopoeia with a clap. I saw it. Grace and Chopper simply stared at the boy, trying to pick their jaws up off the floor. Their expressions, bug-eyed and jaws agape, simply caused the child of their captain to laugh without a care in the world of the world-class anomaly he had just witnessed. Ace's mind isn't fully developed, Chopper realized, a theory already taking shape. His brain is still flexible enough to accept the impossible, so he can see what we can't. He could see what happens when Luffy eats. Chopper, Grace warned. The last time you tried to study that, you went comatose for 3 days from the shock.
Chopper bit his tongue, his curiosity warring against his survival instincts. Maybe there are some mysteries best left unsolved.
Agreed, Grace nodded. Now, let's head to the plaza. I've got 500 barras that say Luffy or Zoro cause a commotion before we get there. Double that if it's both. No way, Chopper disagreed, feeling Ace touch and play with his antlers. The now trio rounded the building. With Ace away from her, it's going to be Nami that causes the property damage. Hand-shaking hoof, the two set their bed just as their snails started to rain. Kaku grinned as he sat in a waiting room within the Tales of the Night bar and brothel, a pair of beautiful mermaids filling a wine flute in his hoof with champagne. He was still in his man-beast form, though he was debating about whether it was safe to drop it yet or not. One of the mermaids stroked his long neck, the former assassin unable to resist letting out a happy hum at the sensation. The change could wait. There were certainly some perks that came with being an AHAT animal was more attractive than a giraffe. That's enough, girls, an older female voice said, both of the mermaids pouting. Get back to work. If you're lucky, he'll stick around for a bit. Yes, Madam Finwaters, the girls chorused with practiced ease, the two swimming out the door with the help of their special bubbles. Kaku barely turned his head, just enough to see the woman that commanded so much respect out of the corner of his eye. Madam Finwaters was not beautiful by any stretch, clearly being an anglerfish fishwoman in her upper years. She was tall and on the wider side, topping out at over 8 feet. Her skin was a rough rust color, a lantern with a red light hanging from the top of her head down to above her face. A smile seemed to be plastered on her lips, revealing the set of needle-like teeth she had. She was dressed in expensive clothes, a white feather boa wrapped around her neck. As befitting a woman in her position, Kaku stood and gave a shallow bow. Greetings, Madam Finwaters. They say you're the head honcho around here. Oh me? The woman grinned, hiding her smile and teeth behind a hand fan. I suppose I hold some sway, but I like to think I'm simply someone who turned a gossiping hobby into a pleasureful, profiting business. But you aren't here to hear an old woman like me tell my story, are you? I would if I could, Kaku responded diplomatically. I'm in something of a hurry, however. Yes, those pirates that just came in. Kaku didn't react, having revealed such information to earn this meeting in the first place. Madam Finwaters closed her fan with a snap. Not that you looked like someone in a hurry, given how you were relaxing with my girls just a minute ago. You dropped the transformation, Sonny. I know a zone fruit when I see one. Still, Kaku did not react, staying in his polite bow as he shrunk back into his human form. Now that's better, the woman commented, walking over to the couch opposite Kaku's. With the former CP9 agent in his man form, she towered over him, just as she liked it. I apologize for the delay in this meeting. My contacts were having quite the difficult time finding out who you were, Kaku Savano. How do you know that name? The zone sputtered, every piece of his composure training forgotten. Silly human, I know every single person who walks through those doors. I don't like not knowing. After all, those who shed light need not fear the dark of the unknown, and no light is more revealing than the red light. She tapped her natural lantern as if any person could have learned what she knew. Kidnapped from a noble family at a young age and trained as a government assassin, only to be kidnapped again by a group of gutsy pirates. You vanished for 2 years, presumed dead, only to be revealed to have run away. But learning who you are is trivial. It's learning what you've been up to that is the real fun. What has brought you here? Ahem. Kaku cleared his throat, trying to give himself time to get his scattered thoughts back in order and regain his composure. I'm afraid I'm not here to talk about my past, madam. Myself and my companions have only just arrived, but due to an unforeseen confrontation with a rival band of pirates, we have been scattered across the island. I was hoping you could give me some standard information. Factions, leaders, perhaps a map? Well, I certainly could, but these sorts of talks are a tit for tat. If you can give me any sort of gossip and stake your words all of them on the validity, then I'll give you an equal level. As for the map, it's just a piece of paper, so just your standard price of a couple hundred barras. Sound like a deal? Madam Finwaters offered her hand, the red light of her lantern seeming to brighten. You seem pretty relaxed, Kaku diverted, not shaking. Why do you want such information when there is little chance it will help you? The woman's needle-like smile grew as she leaned in. Sheer, absolute boredom, she answered, her grin never vanishing. When you've been around as long as I have, You'll always be looking for something you've never seen before, or listening for something you've never heard before. The world is always changing, always coming up with new ways to entertain her people. After all, the world is a stage, and the stage is a world of entertainment. Or at least, that's what my grandfather used to say, go to rest his soul. Right, the blonde muttered, not fully convinced. Yes indeed, so provide me with the entertainment I'm looking for, and I'll give you everything you ask for. So, it's a deal, then? Kaku eyed her hand, still unsure. The light was doing funny things and he couldn't tell if they were just tricks of his eyes. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached forward, taking her hand. It's a deal. Brilliant, Madame Finwaters grinned, shaking his hand with plenty of gusto before sitting down, allowing Kaku to do the same. Now, why don't you tell me what you're willing to tell me, and it better be the truth, and I'll give you information in kind. 2 secrets and some coin from you for the basics and a little more of what you've asked. Factions, leaders, and a map. Her grin widened, showing more of her teeth. Well first, Kaku began, hiding his newfound nervousness at her devilish look. I'm not alone here since I have temporarily joined up with the pirates that I mentioned before. I have 2 of them with me on the street and I asked them to find their own way in. Oh, these 2? Finwaters snapped her fingers, Amy and Usopp getting thrown into the room. They were bound in a considerable amount of rope back to back, gags in their mouths. My boys caught them crawling through the vents. That's why I was so late to meet with you. Really? Kaku sighed, dropping his head into his hand. That's what you went with? The vents? MMMPHH, the 2 pirates offered. I really am sorry, Madame Finwaters, Kaku apologized. We couldn't risk them in the streets because we don't know the relationship between humans and merfolk at this time. Not a problem, dearie, the anglerfish chuckled, snapping her fingers again. The rope fell away from the pirates, Usopp and Amy freeing themselves the rest of the way. That was your fault, long nose, Amy accused as soon as she could. If you weren't lugging that big slingshot around. Do not blame this on me or Kabuto, Cakeface, Usopp defended. It was your stupid umbrella. Ahem. Kaku interrupted, his eyes gesturing to the amused boss across from him. Amy jumped to her feet, her 2 years in the new world allowing her to recognize the situation. Our apologies, madam, she cried, bowing. Brave warriors of the sea do not bow, Usopp huffed, crossing his arms and turning away. Madame Finwaters simply smirked at the defiance. Come join us, the fishwoman insisted, the pirates glancing at each other before sitting on either side of Kaku. Do be honest with me. Your companion here has bet his words on your truthfulness. Should I learn that you have lied, there will be consequences. Her words sent a shiver down the spines of her guests as both Amy and Kaku side-eyed the sniper. Madame Finwaters was not a woman to be trifled with. Now, let's follow up on that info that got you in here. Tell me what you know, and I'll give you the factions you'll find on the island currently. I came in with the Straw Hat Pirates, Kaku admitted after a moment's hesitation. They were scattered around the world 2 years ago and have only just reunited. And the child you mentioned? You told them about him? Usopp demanded. We need information, Kaku muttered. Everyone's gonna learn about him faster in a cheetah chase and a gazelle anyway. Kaku turned back to the woman. He's the son of the captain, Straw Hat, Monkey D. Luffy, and his wife, Cat Burglar, Monkey D. Nami. He was born sometime shortly after their forced separation and his name is Monkey D. Ace. He's named after Captain Luffy's late adopted brother Portgas D. Ace who died in the War of the Best 2 years ago. How cute, the head of the red light Daisoth relaxing into a more natural smile. You don't see little kids on pirate ships often, and sometimes it ends badly. We'll see where that goes. Kaku, Usopp, and Amy shivered at the insinuation of misfortune, but none commented on it. Kaku forged ahead with his explanation. Apparently, both Luffy and Nami were separated from their parents while young, though I don't know the details. As a result, she is determined to give their son the family life they didn't get to have. Like I said, cute. I have quite a bit of info on the factions, though, so you need to give me a little more info on yours. The Straw Hat Pirates are the crew of the man who will become the king of the pirates, Usopp swore. There are 16 of us including Ace and not including Kaku. 7 of us are from the East Blue. Last we heard, all of us except Billy, our electric duck, and Ace have bounties. That might have changed, though. Our strongest fighters are Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jin, and M. Kaku and Amy cut the sniper off, smacking him in the back of the head. Interesting, Madame Finwaters smiled. Now, you wanted to know about the factions here, yes? People will tell you there are 2 main powers, but they aren't quite right. You can find up to 5 intertwined factions here on the island and in the surrounding waters. The obvious one is the Ryugu Kingdom and the army that rules as the government here. Next is the new Fishman Pirates based out of the Fishman District. Then you've got the Pirates of the Flying Dutchman who come in every couple weeks, and they're due in the next few days. Both of those crews are at odds with the army for various reasons. You aren't going to tell us why? Amy asked. That wasn't part of the deal, Madame Finwaters smirked, tapping her lips with a finger. The only other group you might see outside is any sort of mob. When people gather with strong emotions about something, their force can rival any organized faction. And the fifth? Usopp wondered, counting on his fingers. The underground organization of Challenger Deep. If there's something illegal, they can get it. They are the main suppliers of the local pirates and hide in plain sight, operating legal businesses as their cover. I doubt you'll notice them even if you try, but they're there. Now, what more can you give me worth the names of those in control around here? You've heard of us, right? Amy jumped in, hearing her companions faltering. Madam Finwaters nodded. Is there anything you've been wondering about us now that you know we're here? A good question, the woman admired. Leaving the shell on my reef, as they say. Tell me about the powers of those on your crew with devil fruits. That should be a fair trade for the bigwigs of Fishman Island. Sounds good to me, Amy nodded. There are 7, no, 8 of us without counting Kaku. Luffy has the gum fruit which has turned his body into rubber. Coby has the dragon zone fruit. Ancient model Triceratops. Jin has the rumble fruit, the electric logia. I have the kilo fruit, which lets me change my mass and the mass of things I'm holding in kilo increments. My sister recently ate the chem fruit, allowing her to freely control chemicals, though I don't know much more than that. We haven't had time to talk about it. Go on. Next is Chopper. He's a reindeer who ate a human fruit, though we don't know if it has a specific model. It lets him transform into different body types and gave him human intelligence. After him is Robin. She ate the flower fruit which lets her bloom body parts like arms, eyes, or mouths anywhere she can see. Last is Brook. He ate the revive fruit, which brought him back to life after he died, so he's a skeleton now, and that's about it. That's all? Madam Finwaters pressed. I mean, there's Kaku, but he's not a member of the crew. And everyone else's abilities are, well, not necessarily natural, but not from devil fruits. I see, the native nodded, recognizing that Amy was following the letter of their agreement and nothing more, like a true negotiator. I'll accept that. There are quite a few key players, so you might want to take notes. Leading the pirates are Hody Jones and Vanderdecken IX, and the latter has powers that I won't tell you about. At the head of the government is King Neptune and his children. He has 3 sons, Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, and Manboshi, and a daughter, Princess Shirahoshi. There are no direct leaders of the people, but many look up to Madame Charlie. She's a wonderful woman. I have tea with her every other month. Finally, there isn't much known about Challenger Deep, but one of their cover stores is called Pearls Before Swine run by one of their top brass called Mitsushi. Thank you, Madam Finwaters, Kaku muttered, giving a small bow while still seated. He reached back, only to freeze. His smile twitched as he switched hands, his movements becoming increasingly frantic. Is something wrong? The fishwoman asked, whipping out her fan to hide a smirk. I don't seem to have my money with me, Kaku admitted after another short but fruitless search. It must have gotten left on the ship when we got separated. I'm afraid we don't have nothing to pay you with for a map. Wait, I think. Amy and Usopp paled, now frantically searching their own persons. Those guards of yours stole my wallet, Amy frowned. Mine, too, Usopp cried. Wait, did those girls from before? Kaku gasped, clearly ready to believe those pretty mermaids made off with his money. Oh, that's unfortunate, the anglerfish grinned, pulling the map out of somewhere. Here, you can take this one as a loan, assuming you promise to come give me something of equal value later. I'll just take some collateral until then. Like what? The zone blinked, the local pushing the map into his hand. Don't you worry about that, Madam Finwaters winked, her smile widening in a way they did nothing to dissuade the worry Kaku felt. I do believe you have places to be, if you want to meet up with your friends and give me an entertaining time. Ta-ta. The building's owner snapped once more, a trio of burly fishmen entering the room. None too softly, they grabbed the 3 guests before they could react, tossing them out the window. Used to similar situations of suddenly falling, Usopp was the first to react. Special attack. Bounce green. Firing a seed at the street below. The plant inside grew a thick cluster of balloon-like vines in moments upon contact with the ground. Usopp hit the plant first, bouncing onto his feet. Kaku followed him, using moonwalk to slow his descent. Amy landed last, having floated down like she usually did. The crowd stared at them, shocked. Well, that was something, Amy groused. At least we got some information for everyone. Speaking of, has anyone tried the snails? I hadn't even thought about it, Usopp blinked. I haven't used it in so long, I just about forgot about them. Kaku opened his mouth, only for his eyes to widen. He waved his arms, getting the pirate's attention, and tried to speak. Still nothing happened, even as the former CP9 agent's mouth moved. I'm starting to think there was more to the deal you made than we thought, Usopp muttered, his face paling. Oh shit, Amy whispered, her eyes turning to the window where Madam Finwaters was looking down on them. Kaku threw his arms up, but neither pirate could tell what he was trying to imply. You can have the map back.
No, dearie, the anglerfish grinned, her words coming out with Kaku's voice, an effect that came off eerie considering Finwater's choice of words. I said I want entertainment, so entertain me.
Hey, humans. The pirates and agent swiveled, finding several fishmen coming closer with a pair of swords. They looked bloodthirsty, their eyes glinting. One had a visible tattoo on his arm, what seemed to be a simplistic humanoid character with the circle to represent its head beside its feet, all of this in a circle with a diagonal line through it. The meaning was obvious. These were not free-nailed, all three locking into their flight response and booking it as fast as they could, the sounds of the crowd drowning out the ringing of their snails and Madame Finwater's laughter and Kaku's voice. Nami, Coby, Brook, and their new soldier companions wandered through the shopping district of Fishman Island, the frantic mother calling for her son as loud as she could. Though she had tried to get her cohorts to search too, her own volume meant their assistance would mean little anyway. Instead, Coby conversed with the natives while Brook took in the sights. Not that he had eyes to, yo-ho-ho. The way the mangroves carry light is amazing, Coby smiled, walking alongside Dave and the knowledgeable soldier whose name was Shine. I mean, I'd heard tell of it while on Sabaody, but seeing it in person is a whole different matter. Well, you get used to it, Dave shrugged, keeping an eye on the people around them. Try Horn, you're being pretty nonchalant for how the cat burglar is acting right now, Shine offered, his trident held against his chest like a child holds a teddy bear. This isn't the worst spot we've ever been in, Coby responded with a shrug. Ace is with someone, so I know he's safe wherever he is. It's just a matter of us gathering, and that's going to happen when one of us makes a ruckus. That's just how these things go. I do not like the sound of that, Dave muttered. You said you were waiting for us, the zone pointed out. That means you had to have heard of our proclivities. Coby turned, slowly blinking at a small group that had formed around his tallest and eldest crewmate. Kya, it's Soul King. Will you sign my arm? No, sign my tail? Sign my shirt. Sign my bow. I think that's enough of that. Coby cut in, stepping between Brook and his adoring, scantily clad fans. As Soul King's manager, I'm sorry to say that we can't stick around any longer, but if any of you can bring us information about a young human child named Ace, our crew would be very grateful. He's missing at the moment. Yo-ho-ho, that's correct, Brook quickly agreed. He wasn't able to say any more before the crowd dispersed, beginning their own goose chases for Ace. The wonders of stardom, Coby mused. So you're my manager now, Coby? Brook questioned with a quirk of his non-existent eyebrow. We need to get moving, the rosette shrugged. Well, a male voice mused nearby. Aren't you all a sight for sore eyes? Speaking of stars and stardom. If it isn't Papagu, Coby smiled, getting down on one knee to offer the beanie-wearing starfish a hand. The talking animal accepted the offer, climbing up to rest on Coby's shoulder. I would have thought you would be hanging out with Kami right now. Nah, Papagu waved off. She's got her job and I've got mine. We live in separate areas, too. Really? Brook blinked. Or he would have if he had eyelids. I was under the impression that you were a pet. That's completely false. Mr. Papagu, Dave and Shine greeted, not quite bowing but giving the starfish an air of respect that Coby was unprepared for. Do you know these pirates? You're pirates? The Enditor gasped, one arm over the middle of his body, since starfish don't have a heart, like a certain musician, yo-ho-ho. His surprised face quickly relaxed into a grin. Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know these guys. Their crew saved me and a couple friends a few years ago, so he said we'd meet up with them when they got here. He turned to address Coby. Kami said you'd be here next month, though. Yet here we are, Brook chuckled. Getting here was no easy feat and we got separated coming in. Yeah, I can see that, Papagu nodded. I heard you made it big, Soul King, so I thought I'd follow the sounds of a crowd of fans. Who's the ace character you were asking about? You know, the one cat burglar is yelling about over there. The starfish gestured over his shoulder to where Nami was balancing on the shoulders of the three other fishman soldiers, each seemingly boxed in by the air around them complete with the face pressed against the window squish. Her son, Brook answered, the invertebrate doing a double take. Luffy's the father, Coby offered quickly before any misconceptions could form. Ace is nearly 2, but because of Luffy's genes, he almost looks more like a 4 or 5-year-old. I'm honestly surprised. Papagu blinked behind his shades, and after the crying ship, though I couldn't be surprised by you all anymore. We're just full of surprises, Coby shot back. Thank you for helping to care for Sunny while we were busy, though. I couldn't have done it all alone between my training and the job with the Red Embers. Don't worry about it. Papagu waved off. She's a real good kid. In fact, taking care of her has made me consider having a few brats of my own. But, Coby floundered. Don't starfish reproduce as surely? And not have any sort of development? Yeah, so? Never mind. You know, I'm curious, the starfish began, shifting the topic while Coby and Brook were trying to wrap their minds around his previous statement. Not that Brook had a mind anymore. You all had dens to talk on 2 years ago, so why don't you use them now? The skeleton and Zone glanced at each other, one of them blinking in lieu of the other not having eyes or eyelids. They turned back to the starfish. We forgot. As if the universe was rubbing salt into their wounded pride, their snails started to rain. Actually, Koby, could you let me out here? Frankie's question came as their turtle taxi swam by the shore, the tops of buildings over the edge. You don't want to come see the mermaids? Luffy blinked, turning away from his sightseeing to look at the shipwright. I thought you, Brooke, and Sanji would be the ones most excited to see them. I've got an errand I have to do, Frankie responded, standing as Koby asked the turtle to stop. My old mentor Tom is from the island and I want to track down his little brother Den so I can tell him just how super important he was to me. Plus, I want to try to track down Sunny. I'll meet up with you all later. That's fine, Luffy nodded. It wasn't his place to tell his crew what they could and could not do on their shore leave. We'll meet up again later. Let us know when you find her. Go find her. Find her, he won't find her. Maybe he'll find her, who cares if he finds her? I'm sure Frankie Chin will find Mary Chin, Koby offered. He built her, so I'm sure he will. Maybe he can. I don't know, call her or something. Ah, Don? Jin asked as their turtle taxi dipped below the water once more. Did he forget we can call everyone on our snails? She. Luffy laughed. Yeah, oops, how silly of us, I'll give everyone a call right now. This truly is a beautiful spot, Robin commented as she, Mary, and their new companion Mina rode on a taxi turtle, said Turtle nearing its destination of the forest on the very edge of Fishman Island. This is it, Mina smiled, extending an arm toward the trees in the distance. The underwater forest seemed to be inside its own personal bubble, a massive beam of transferred sunlight shining down on it. Even from their current distance, Mary and Robin could make out a good number of old and/or damaged ships cast around the edge of the forest. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Sunny was not one of them. The mermaid spun to face the pirates, one finger up in front of her lips. Our little national treasure, the sea forest. Not a lot of people come out here because of the distance or the currents unless they want a romantic getaway from the crowds, so it's usually empty and quiet. Outsiders aren't supposed to be here, but I think we can make an exception for our boss's friends. That's very generous, Robin nodded. Hey, Robin, Mary began, her face all but pressed against the bubble. Could you let me try to read it out loud before translating it for us? I know I don't have that much practice, but I have this gut feeling that the ANNG to be important for us. I can't say how or why, though. It's just a feeling. A fairy feeling. Actually, I was going to suggest the same thing, the eldest of the women responded, turning her gaze from the forest in the distance to the white-haired girl. I can make all the practice sentences in the world, but the only way to use the language is with a poneglyph in front of you. We're here, Mina announced, their turtle transportation coming to a full stop halfway inside the bubble surrounding the poneglyph and its forest. The mermaid hopped out, offering her hand for the human and Klabouterman. Neither took the offer, much to her disappointment. Where is the poneglyph located? Robin inquired. It's hidden in the forest, Mina answered as the dark-haired human stepped out of the bubble. Some say the forest was planted to hide it, but I don't know if I believe that. The chances of that story being true is as likely as the alternative, but the results are the same in either case. Mary's feet hit the soft dirt a moment after Robin's, the white-haired ship girl sprinting toward the trees. Be careful, Mina yelled. There's an important grave you can't disturb. She'll be fine, Robin assured, keeping her own doubts to herself while hoping Mary didn't go off the handle like Luffy or Zoro could. On the bright side, this expedition of theirs was purely archaeological, so there should be no destruction. Should, of course, being the optimal word, though there was no known method to damage a poneglyph, so Robin was unconcerned about that. Mary's form vanished into the tree line, Robin and Mina silent as the pair moved over at a more sedated pace. A second later, Mary burst from the trees, a look of confusion on her face. Is something the matter, Mary? Robin asked. No, the Klabouterman answered, a hitch in her voice. I'm just making sure I know the way out is all. Quickly, before she could be questioned further, the young fairy turned and headed back into the forest. Robin stopped Mina several feet from the closest trees, a hand on the mermaid's shoulder. What is it? The merfolk asked. Give it a moment, the archaeologist said. 3, 2. Right on cue, Mary ran out of the forest once again, though this time from a different set of trees off to Robin and Mina's left. The horned girl blinked, her gaze landing on Robin's knowing half-smirk.
Quote. Damn it, she muttered, one hand grabbing a horn in frustration like one might run their fingers through their hair. Fine, to ahead and say it, Robin.
It appears Zoro's sense of direction has taken root in you, Mary, the older pirate chuckled. How unfortunate. Shut up, Mary whined. Back in Water 7, I was always following someone, or the city was so big that I had an excuse for getting lost. But you have neither in this scenario, Robin pointed out. Now stick with the group and don't go running off like our dear captain. Alright. Mary stepped over to Robin and Mina, preparing to enter the forest once more. They paused, however, a soft ringing breaking the silence around them. Robin and Mary reached under their clothing, each pulling out a ringing snail. Sharing a glance, Mary answered hers. "We made it," their captain's voice yelled from the snail. She. Hey, everyone, report in." "Hi, Daddy," Ace called, his voice echoing through the snail. Auntie Grace and Choppy and Uncle Zowo fought off some real mean guys. "Oh Goda, Ace," Nami's voice breathed, relief evident in her cadence. "I thought I'd lost you. Stay with Aunt Grace and Chopper, okay? Not with Uncle Zoro."
"Oi, okay, Mommy, but Uncle Zo already went poof."
"What about everyone else?" Luffy asked, some whispers beforehand showing the question was prompted. "I don't know where I am," Zoro slowly admitted, still a bit sore about being called out at being lost even though Nami had no direct evidence to the accusation's validity. Some kind of smooth metal hallway. Robin settled in for what would clearly be a long discussion. "You're where?" Nami's voice demanded through the snail. Zoro shoving his wrist as far away from his ear as he could. The walls around him were gray. A small being of some sort dressed in weird red clothing dead at his feet, the weird, black tentacles coming from it making him conclude it was some sort of small octopus fishman. "Some sort of ship," Zoro repeated. "I'm telling you, I walked past a building and the world changed. Fishman Island has some weird landscapes." There's nowhere on Fishman Island like that," Zoro-chin, Kami's voice offered. "In fact, the only air route from the Fishman district leads toward the open air market near the plaza. You can't have gone any other way." "Geehehe," Ace laughed. "Uncle Zowo went poof, gone, but Uncle Zowo is still on." "I guess you do come back eventually," Nami agreed slowly, her husband and son laughing away at Zoro's embarrassed attempts at excuses. "On to more important matters, are you okay, Ace?" "Yeah," the boy answered, the snail in Zoro's hand animating to copy the child swaying side to side as excited children do. "Auntie Grace and Choppy are gonna tell stories about Mommy and Daddy." "Which one?" Luffy asked. "Albasta, the sandy place." "Anyway," Grace cut in. "It sounds like the local plaza is a central location. Any chance we can all meet there?" "Actually, the palace wants to invite us for a feast," Coby put in. "Nami, Brook, and I are with Papagu and some of the soldiers Nami enlisted into helping us look for Ace." "More like forced," a voice Zoro didn't know offered, though Nami quickly cowled whoever that was. "There is one problem," Amy muttered. Long neck here was trying to get us some information and ended up losing his voice. "He talked that much in a few minutes?" Zoro blinked as the lights above him flickered and died. "No, more like literally lost it," Usopp answered. "There was this woman with a devil fruit who stole his voice. At least, we think it was a devil fruit." "That's so scary," Nami and Chopper gasped. "Oh my," Robin chuckled. "I do hope he knows one of the silent languages one of us does. I'd rather not play charades in the midst of battle, lest we die while our foes think us to be dancing." "I think there's another problem we need to mention," Jin tossed in. Everyone checked in, except for Sanji. "Is he with any of y'all?" No one answered, the snail in Zoro's hand silent. "Well, that's inconvenient," Brook commented. "No bones about it." "He is alive," Mary offered. "I can still feel him, so he's somewhere on the island, but I don't know, fuzzy. My connection to him right now is a lot weaker than my connection to all of you. Even Ace, and I only met him a couple days ago." "Fascinating," Chopper muttered. "The amount of tests we can run knowing that there are things that can even interfere with Klabouterman's senses." "Let's focus on that later," Usopp said, cutting the reindeer off. "Let's find Sanji first. There are enough scary things here without us missing one of our monsters." "Someone said there was a plaza, yeah?" Luffy asked. "Let's go there, then we'll find Sanji. Then we'll go to the palace." "That's probably Goncourt Plaza you're talking about," Papagu offered. "That works for me," Nami agreed. "We can only hope Sanji is with Sunny." "I don't think he is," Frankie responded. "Some locals said they found her on one of the outlying beaches, but it's just her. There's been no sign of Cook Bro. And honestly, I don't want to leave Sunny here even in case he wanders back. It's super too open after our run-in with those guys outside." "You can bring her to the sea forest," Mary suggested. "It's out of the way and has a poneglyph nearby, though we haven't found it yet. Robin and I can meet you at the plaza and come back when we get Sunny again. We'll read the poneglyph then." "I want to see the pony gif," Ace added. "That's a super idea, Mary." "It's as good a plan as any," Nami agreed. "Sorry to cut your search short." "Our expedition is only on hold," Robin replied. "We will meet you all soon." Well, a great white shark fishman chuckled, he and his buddies surrounding the blonde human they'd found on the beach. Said fishman stood a good 9 feet tall with lower, stout shoulders and a thick neck. A dorsal fin grew from his back, though he had no hair to speak of. His friends were each some type of shark. The smallest a nurse shark fishman at 2 feet tall. That one was standing on the shoulder of another, a hammerhead. For someone surrounded by creatures naturally 10 times stronger than the average human, the blonde didn't seem too worried about his predicament. Rather, he pat his pocket. casually bringing her a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, one of the former of which he lit with the latter. "What's a lowly human doing all the way out here on Landshark Beach?" Great White asked, a sneer of confidence permeating into his words. "You have got to be kidding me," Sanji sighed, loosening his tie a little, though he couldn't tell why outside of force of habit, much like the cigarette he now smoked. "That is the cheesiest name for a beach I've ever heard. I think, what idiot named it?" "Ah. But," the shark floundered, almost defensively. "You shut your stupid human mouth. You don't know anything about the names of Fishman Island." "Oh, so that's where I am," Sanji nodded, filing the information away. "You know, that makes sense. Anyway, what can you tell me about living ships?" "Living ships?" the hammerhead questioned. "What, have you been living under a rock for the past 2 years? Everyone in the Grand Line knows about Claboutermans after Moby showed up during the Paramount War." "Come on, bro," the nurse shark hissed. "It's just one human and I'm real hungry. I haven't gotten any of the stupid surface walkers since Hody started taking them all." "A good point," the Great White agreed. "There's no point talking to our food. Die for us, human." The sharks charged, fangs bared at the amnesiac. Sanji, however, didn't even flinch, his left foot coming up to kick the Great White in the jaw. Sanji barely paused, only putting enough extra time in to redirect the largest fishman's momentum upward before he pivoted, switching legs to plow the nurse shark into the side of the hammerhead's face. The smallest shark, caught between a shark and a hard foot, coughed blood. All three attackers wallowed on the sand, dazed and confused. "Huh," Sanji blinked. "Didn't know I could do that." "You bastard," the hammerhead grunted, pushing himself to his knees before staggering to his feet. "We'll get you for that. We've got laws about humans who attack us." "But you attacked me first," Sanji pointed out. "And you wanted to eat me. I know a lot about table manners, and eating people alive isn't good." "Yeah, what do you know?" the Great White growled. Sanji did not voice an answer, acting on instinct and muscle memory to flip upside down. He caught himself on his hands, twisting his legs to catch the shark on both sides of his head before flipping him, planting the fishman's face into the sand. Said shark went rigid for only a moment before his body slumped, going limp with his head still stuck in the sand. "What the hell kind of monster is this guy?" the hammerhead fishman questioned. "Fishmen are naturally 10 times stronger than humans." "Ingredients shouldn't mess with the chef," Sanji rebuffed, tapping the ashes of his cigarette loose. "Bring it on, sushi to be." The two other sharks glanced at each other before booking it without a word. Sanji jumped, a sudden applause sounding from the water. He turned to see that a trio of mermaids were clapping for him, their fishtails mostly hidden by the water save for the ends. Sanji felt a pang in his chest as the sight, as if a dream had been fulfilled, but he couldn't tell why. "Bravo!" the mermaid in the center called. She was beautiful with blonde hair and an angular face. "It's about time someone put those troublemakers in their place." "Why, thank you," Sanji responded. "I didn't know we had an audience. Here looking for you," the mermaid explained. "We don't get many humans around here, so you must be one of the Straw Hats. Boss has us looking for you." Sanji's eyes shrunk, the name Straw Hat triggering something in his memory. He blinked, everything rushing back. The beauty of the mermaids before him struck, but it was dulled because this wasn't first sight. Rather than a gushing nosebleed, a trickle of blood dripped from his nose. He approached the edge of the sea, pulling a flower from within his suit while kneeling before the three merfolk. "Greetings, my name is Sanji, and I am the chef of the Straw Hat Pirates. To make your acquaintance is a dream come true." The mermaids who had not yet spoken giggled. Handsome and suave, the leader smiled. She reached out, taking his hand in one of hers. "Come along. Boss has been waiting here a year for your visit. We shouldn't keep him waiting any longer." Without giving Sanji time to reply, the mermaid pulled him into the water. Together, the three merfolk dragged the human along, taking him to an unknown destination. The whole time, his nose never stopped the trickle of blood. "Captain, the Straw Hats have arrived on the island," a fishman announced, getting down on one knee as if bowing to the man he was speaking to. Said man was a fishman himself, a shark of some sort, on the wider side with a long mane of curly, black hair and skin of a pale purple blue. The announcement caused his expression to harden, an angry grin crossing his lips. The room they spoke in was flooded, packed with fishmen of all types and breeds. The only similarity they all shared was a tattoo design somewhere on their person, a circle with a diagonal slash over a simple, beheaded corpse. Anyone on Fishman Island would recognize it as the symbol of the new Fishman Pirates. "So they are alive like the rumors claimed," the captain sneered. "Tell me more." "They are currently split into groups," the man explained. "Our contacts have reported at least 5 groups of 2 or 3, and the new sea prism stone handcuffs you ordered from Challenger Deep are ready for us." "Excellent. Send some men to retrieve those and a few more to go keep tabs on the pirates. I don't want Neptune or his stupid spawn getting hold of them before we do." "Right away, Captain." The man stood, running out of the room even as a new fishman entered. This one had dirt brown skin and 4 legs along with a noticeable hunch in his back. A zigzagged mustache of black hair seemed to accentuate his age, but the bubble around him separated him from the rest of his kind. He was dressed in neutral clothing, though one webbed hand was covered in a red glove. Bahohoho! The man laughed as he entered, his eyes carrying a maniacal gleam. So, you know who those pirates that slipped past me were, Hody? The larger shark, Hody, leaned forward on his throne, eyeing the newcomer with a tired gaze. Vanderdecken, he greeted, we weren't expecting you so soon. No, but I had some news I wanted to share with my ally, Vanderdecken responded, spreading his arms wide. Rather, I've had an interesting encounter that will tip the balance even more to our favor. What is it? Hody demanded, tired of the fellow captain's constant circumnavigation of the point. We've got some revenge to be planning. Oh, I know you wish to avenge your role model, the four-legged fishman nodded, but we need more than just that slave army you built up if we want a chance against the Straw Hats in a straight fight, and you can't help me reach my dear, sweet Shirahoshi if you lose. Hody's hand clenched over the armrest of his seat, cracking the stone it was carved from, but Vanderdecken continued, undeterred. That is why I found a group willing to work with us so they can claim the heads of the Straw Hats. There is one little snag, though. Oh ho ho. A new voice commented, steps echoing though the water as a pair of humans in flutter kick coatings stepped into the room. Instantly, over 24 swords and spears were trained on them, though only Caribou noticed. His brother was looking the other direction, back down the hallway they had come from. The darker brother raised his arms, his hands covered by his sleeves. Oh my, this sure has us in a bind. Yeah, bro, his brother agreed, still looking the wrong way. I agree, bro. What is the meaning of this? Hody demanded, the armrest shattering in his grip. You dare to bring humans here without chains? Who the hell are they? Now, they know their place, the captain of the Flying Dutchman placated. One has a devil fruit like I do, and they both know that they couldn't survive the pressure down here. One hole in their bubbles and they're dead. Wet hair, Caribou at your service, the dark-skinned human grinned, dropping into a bow with one arm stretched to his side, though his eyes never left the sharkfish man. And this is my little brother, Bloodsplatter, Caribou. And where are the rest of you? Hody's voice dropped to a growl. There were 2 human pirates standing in front of him, but they could not have made it to Fishman Island alone. The little bastards were like rats. Where one was, there were certainly more in what seemed to be a never-ending tide of filth. Back on our ship, Caribou answered. He straightened before the front of his torso turned to mud, the man ejecting a trio of fishmen from his insides. The sight of said fishman caused Hody to launch to his feet, though the once prisoners showed that they were still alive by groaning. Some of your men were very rude and tried to essentially enslave us as we were coming in, so I had to rough them up a little. I bet this makes you wonder why we wish to ally with you even though you attacked us, right? Hody did not answer, though his eyes narrowed. He was sure he could take this human since he had the home field advantage, but to capture 3 of his collectors was no small feat. Begrudgingly, he silently admitted that this human's power could be helpful if it was worth the risk. You see, Hody Jones, Caribou offered, taking Hody's expression as a go-ahead to continue. I have something of a vendetta against Straw Hat, just like you if what Deccan tells me is true. So let me help you. There are only a few things I want, things that you don't need, so it shouldn't be too hard. And what? Hody spat. Would those things be human? A sick smile stretched over Caribou's face. As many of the Straw Hats alive as I can get, and the heads of the rest. They are worth quite the beautiful berry on the surface. Silence followed Caribou's request, the tension building as Hody considered his demand. Bahohoho, Vanderdecken laughed, breaking the silence. Didn't I tell you would make a good ally? That's it? Hody asked, being sure to double-check. You only want the humans? Yes, that's correct, Caribou answered, lying through his teeth. Of course he wanted more, but he could not fight the Straw Hats and these fishmen at the same time. No, better to pit them against one another and take out the winners when they're weakened. Only then would he have free reign of Fishman Island. So, Vanderdecken urged, do we have an agreement? Against his better judgment, Hody nodded, pulling a bubble coral from his pocket. He clicked the top, allowing the bubble it made to fill the room and a little more, replacing the water with breathable air. The bubbles surrounding Vanderdecken and the 2 humans popped as air filled the space around them. You will stand beside us, for now, the shark-fish man growled, but just remember that I will kill you without a moment's hesitation if you step out of line. Understood, Caribou responded. Hody nodded, accepting that, before he jerked his hand. Bring in the other humans. A lackey bowed before running off down a corridor. No one spoke for another minute or 2 before the rattle of chains began to echo from the hallway. A crowd of humans, all bound in chains and looking hollow and underfed, were marched into the room. Their dress varied between pirate even a few marine underlings mixed in, though no one but they were quite sure how they got there. Caribou didn't bat an eye. He cared not for the suffering of others or of the racism that plagued the lives of fishmen. He cared only for himself, and keeping himself out of similar chains. So what's the plan? Caribou grinned, eager to get started. Perhaps we'd track them down and kill them one by one? Or maybe we'd poison their food and lie in wait? The Straw Hats are not our main priority, Vanderdecken denied, his eyes turning to the ceiling as tears welled up. No, we are going to collect my dear love, Shirahoshi. Caribou's smile froze, locked in place, before it slowly fell from his face. Who? Princess Shirahoshi, the daughter of King Neptune, Hody Jones explained, since Decken was still lost in his fantasy. Decken has been obsessed with her since he met her years ago. Taking her will demoralize the Ryugu army and the royal family enough that the new Fishman pirates can establish a new government in their place. If the Straw Hats wish to interfere, then we will crush them, though I don't intend to let them just leave. Not after what they did to Big Bro Arlong almost 3 years ago. Unfortunately, Decken picked up, my love intimidates my lovely Shirahoshi. I send her gifts every day, but her brothers and father refuse to allow her to meet with me like I know she wants to. We can't just walk up to the palace as things stand, which is where my powers come in. He spread his arms wide, indicating his hand covered in the glove. Any person I have touched becomes the target on one of my hands, and ever since this one touched Shirahoshi, I have never allowed it to touch another human to become the target. However, my powers have since grown stronger. You, humans, Hody barked, seeing that Vanderdecken was getting impatient. We are going to send you to the Ryugu Palace. If you want to live, assuming you survive the trip and the guards, you will open the water bridge that connects the palace to Fishman Island. Do that, and I'll allow you and one friend each to leave. Why you mean that? A merchant stuttered. Oh good, a volunteer? Decken grinned. Let's show them how it's done, though I doubt you'll survive crashing into the door of Shirahoshi's room. Grabbing the man by his arm with the glove still on, the pirate captain threw the merchant into the air with considerable force his small arms didn't seem to have. Upon reaching the apex of his arc, the man stopped before his body twisted, rocketing down the hallway with a scream that turned to a gurgle when he exited the bubble. Humans panicked as Vanderdecken started throwing more and more of them, the human missiles disappearing in the same direction. Caribou watched in fascination as people vanished, a mad grin widening. Soon, he and his brother were the only humans left in the room. Ha ha ha, Caribou laughed, dragging attention to him and Koribu. Hody seemed surprised, as if he expected fear rather than mirth. What a plan, using your prisoners as projectiles, brilliant. Yeah, bro, Koribu agreed, you seem surprisingly calm, one of Hody's underlings commented. Why wouldn't I be? Caribou responded. Because they're human. I don't know them, so their lives are meaningless to me. And I could survive such, so if it happens to me, I won't die. My only question is, when will we fight the Straw Hats? We will take over the palace, first, Hody said, no room in his voice for argument. You will come with us because I don't trust you. You'll find no objections from me, Caribou smirked. Straw Hat and his little band are mine. But I do have one question. And what would that be? Was that all the prisoners you had? I think you'd need more to beat an army. There is one more, Hody admitted with a frown. He's not going anywhere, though. He's a traitor and a fool. A disgrace to all fishmen. Finally, Frankie grinned, looking up at the beached ship of the Straw Hat Pirates. Nodding to himself, he turned to his companion. A merman with a brown tail and a hat similar to a fedora. Den, allow me to introduce you to the Thousand Sunny, the most super ship in the Grand Line. Sunny, I'm back. Raw. The rumbling coming from the ship took on an almost desperate sound as her ropes reached for Frankie. Tears, or something very much like them of a spiritual nature as Frankie had learned, flowed from her eyes as the ship tried to turn herself to no avail. Rahar. She is alive, Den muttered in awe, the metal man beside him striding toward the sloop. When one of his brother's former apprentices had come to him saying he'd built a living ship, Den had been excited, but still harbored the nugget of doubt. Seeing this, however, proved that Frankie's boastings had not been fiction. Did you super think I was lying? Frankie asked, stepping into the range of Sunny's ropes. They wrapped around him desperately, like a lost child hugging a family member. It's super okay, Sunny. Rahi. The ship cried, trying to form audible words she no doubt had thoughts of. There could be any number of reasons for this, ranging from not having the vocal cords of a manifestation or simply her current distress at having lost Sanji. Coby had said she knew some words and Mary could communicate with Sunny telepathically, so it wasn't that Sunny had the mind of an infant or anything like that. Still, there was much Frankie did not know about the growth patterns of Klaboutermans, so any guess was as good as the next. Rahi Gao, Rahar.
Sanji left, didn't he? Frankie asked, easing himself out of the ropes to run his metal hand over Sunny's hull. He couldn't understand her words currently, but he understood her emotions. Anything less and he would have failed her as her maker. Something happened.
Ra, we need to get her back in the water, Den announced. I'm no ship, but as a merman I understand the feeling of being stranded on land. The sand can't feel good to her. Luckily, I super planned for a situation like this, Frankie grinned. Sunny, help me up. At his order, a rope ladder descended for him to grab. Doing so caused Sunny to retract them, pulling Frankie upward until he could drop to the deck. She did the same for Den a moment later. After all, her creator brought him here, so he can't be bad. Frankie took a moment to check the kitchen, confirming that Sanji was not there. The old pool of blood and the sleeping snail were concerning, but only confirmed that the cook was absent. Filing that information away for later, Frankie walked to the steering wheel. "Alright, Sonny. Let's super see if your paddleboat mode works on land just as much as it should. Channel 0, Pa." A horn echoed over the island, interrupting the cyborg. Den looked up instinctively, recognizing the sound of a royal announcement as a sense of foreboding gnawed at his stomach. That gnawing proved accurate when the horn turned to angry feedback, forcing them to cover their ears. Something was wrong. "Mommy, Daddy," smiles widened over Luffy and Nami's faces as the voice of their son reached them from across the plaza. They turned just in time to see Ace wiggle out of Grace's arms and run with a smile as bright as the sun. Luffy knelt, scooping Ace up as he reached them. "Did you have fun, Ace?" the young father asked. "Lots," the child answered. "Uncle Zowo and Auntie Grace and Choppy beat up these bad people like bam, pow." Then Uncle Zowo went poof, and Auntie Grace and Choppy talked about. He paused, as if trying to remember something. "Allah Bata," he finished, being careful to sound out the name correctly. "Very good, Ace," Nami praised. "Sounds like you had a great time," Luffy chuckled, lifting Ace into the air. His son laughed, enjoying himself. "It's true," Koby blinked, watching the small family as Grace, Chopper, and Billy, who now sported his copper claws that Frankie had made, joined her and the other Straw Hats that had arrived already. I know, right?" Jin agreed. Standing with them were Koby and Brook while the quintuplets floated. Pagu sat on Brook's shoulder. "I think he's cute," Ichika offered. "He's cute," Nika agreed. "He's not cute," Sanka denied. "Maybe he's cute," Yonka shrugged. "Who cares if he's cute?" Yonka too muttered. "Honestly, I'm surprised how quickly Luffy took to being a father," Grace commented, desensitized to the Grand Line to the point that the Medaka Mermaid quintuplets' comments didn't faze her. "I mean, he only learned this morning." "This morning?" Papagu blinked. "I thought he'd known all along." "After everything we learned about his childhood with Garp, I wasn't sure what to expect," Koby added. The others turned to him, confused. "What?" "Don Luffy never told us about his childhood," Jin clarified. "You know, other than not knowing his dad and some stuff about eating big cats." Koby blinked, trying to remember where the information he had about their captain's past had come from if not from the man himself. The answer struck him a moment later, the scar that covered his back throbbing at the memory. "Oh, that's right. Ace told me stories while we were in Impel Down." That comment, though offhand, brought the conversation to a screeching halt. The air around them seemed to plummet in temperature as the pirates were reminded of the results of their separation. Kami, ever innocent of the world, didn't seem to understand the significance of his words even as the other merfolk with them gaped at the casual mention of having been inside the impenetrable underwater fortress. Luckily, the tension broke as a new group stepped into their view, Amy, Usopp, and Kaku reaching their destination. The pirates raised their hands in greetings while Kaku kept glancing over his shoulder as if worried they were being followed. "That was some entrance, huh?" Amy began, the trio coming to a stop beside the group. "Geez. It's like Sabaody, just waiting for the rest to get here. Except now we have actual problems to deal with," Usopp put in, gesturing to Kaku. The zone seemed to take offense to that, making gestures with his hands that neither Usopp nor Amy understood. "Well, that's rude," Grace commented, Kaku turning to her with wide eyes. He wasn't aware that any of them knew thieves can't. "Besides, you losing your voice is a problem to be solved. We don't have to help since you yourself said you aren't part of the crew." "But we will," Chopper added. "What do we need to do for that?" "I don't understand," Kami blinked. "What happened?" Kaku had his voice stolen by this Finwater woman, Usopp offered. "Madam Finwaters?" Kami and Papagu asked, each with a different tone. The starfish sounded scared while the mermaid seemed happy. "You know her?" Amy asked, Kaku citing something the others suspected was the same question. "She's nice," Kami nodded. "She and Madame Charlet, my boss, have tea sometimes." "She's terrifying," Papagu shivered. "I met her once at a party and I swear it was like she wanted to eat my soul the way she looked at everyone. She's been called a queenpin by some friends of mine because she can ruin a person's reputation and life in a night with a single sentence. She's that powerful." "Yo-ho-ho," Brook chuckled. "That sounds very serious. What must we do to remedy this silence of yours?" Kaku waved his arms, quickly signing out the details of his deal. "We have to entertain her until she decides it's been worth it," Grace translated. "Sounds easy enough. I bet trouble will come to us." Koby began, only to pause, closing his mouth. He knew the world's curse brought trouble to those who said there would be none. But did reverse psychology work? Luffy had tempted fate on their way down, but that trouble may have already passed with their wreck of an entrance. Well, knowing how the Grand Line worked, he was sure there would be plenty of chaos in the near future, one way or another. As if on cue, a horn echoed overhead. The horn was, however, interrupted by an artificial screech of feedback that assaulted the ears. Whatever it was, Coby knew the chaos he'd been fearing was about to begin. Sea level, Sabaody, Vrats, Monkey D. Garp grunted, tossing the unconscious body of gashed Albion to the side the same way one tosses an empty bag in the trash. The pirate and his crew had thought the vice admiral had come to Sabaody to capture them and attack preemptively. Garp would have left them alone otherwise, though that didn't matter now. Honestly, I can't go anywhere without some upstart trying something. Well, that was at least something of a warm-up. Cracking his neck, first to the left, then to the right, Garp stripped off his marine coat and loosened his tie. He blinked, patting the den shell he could feel in his breast pocket. Should I tell them where I'm going? He asked himself. A moment passed. Nah, it doesn't matter that much. Nodding to himself at that flawless logic, he tossed his snail onto his coat and, after taking a deep breath, dove into the ocean, completely missing the sound of his den starting to ring with a peculiar badup, badup. Sanji was just beginning to black out when the trio of mermaids that had abducted him pushed him out of the water, throwing the pirate onto the sand at the feet of another fishman. The mermaids that had brought him waved, accepting thanks from the fishman, before diving back into the surf and swimming away. My melorines, wait, Sanji cried, water still caught in his lungs making the words gurgle. It was too late, though, the women already long gone. Sorry about that, the fishman apologized, bending down to help Sanji to his feet. The cook tried to shake himself off, wiping his sad tears as best he could with his soaked sleeve, before taking in the sight of whomever the beauties had led him to, lighting a new cigarette as he did. The man stood as tall as Sanji, though it should have been taller given his slouch. His skin was a shade of blue and his black hair spiked upward. He was dressed in a cream-colored shirt with the Krimen brand logo and brown slacks, the former contrasting against his skin, helping the tattooed 8 on his neck show. The man grinned, showing off his mouth of sharp teeth. And you are? Sanji questioned. Sorry, I suppose you wouldn't know me, the fishman commented, holding out one hand. I'm Namur, captain of the Whitebeard 8th Division, though a lot of people around here seem to call me boss. I've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? Sanji asked, accepting the handshake. Specifically, I've been waiting for Luffy, but you're a member of his crew, right? It's about time you all came through. Captain's been getting really excited about forming an official alliance with you all. Wait, you said you're a Whitebeard pirate? Sanji blinked. But I thought Whitebeard died 2 years ago, in the war. He did, exactly the way Pops wanted to go out. Namur nodded. I meant Captain Moby, the Clabouterman of our flagship. He revealed himself during the war and Pops named him his successor. Since then, we Whitebeards have been trying to maintain our peace in the New World while waiting for the ones everyone believes in. I'm confused, the chef admitted, taking a seat on a nearby rock. We'd each been training on our own for 2 years, so a lot of us don't know what's been going on. At least, I don't. I didn't get much free time in. Hell. He shivered, every horrible memory passing through his mind at the same time. Then I guess I'll need to explain the situation in the New World, the fishman said. Well, first of all, Fishman Island is under the protection of the Whitebeard pirates, which is why I'm here. It's an unfortunate necessity to keep rival pirates from causing havoc, but when the king and his sons are trying to fulfill the late queen's wish of being recognized as an official nation to the world government, a Yonko's protection is a detriment. I can see why, Sanji agreed. With how hard it was to get to Fishman Island, keeping a marine base here would be incredibly difficult, even if it would probably catch plenty of pirates and improve relations with these. Based on all the racism and the money there is in the trade of merfolk, the government probably doesn't want to include Fishman Island despite their attempts. What does that have to do with us, though? Luffy didn't tell you? Namur blinked. He made a lot of allies with his stunt in the war, including all of the Whitebeards, Moby, and Queen Ivankov of the revolutionaries, but he made a lot of enemies, too. Big Mom has made several attempts at claiming Fishman Island in an attempt to waylay your crew. Everyone's watching you, waiting for you. Knowing Luffy, if he knows which I bet he doesn't, he wouldn't think that's important. Yeah, well, Big Mom isn't the only person in the New World looking for a chance to get their claws into your crew. The Marines have moved their headquarters into the New World and are regularly sending out their admirals to carve out their own territory. On top of that, warlords like Doflamingo expressed interest in your captain during the war, too. Sanji almost lost his cigarette at that information, but managed to catch himself. The crew knew there were going to be fights with big names when they got back together, they just didn't know exactly which names they would be. Speaking of, Namur continued, reaching behind him. He pulled out an orange hat with a pair of blue buttons on it. I believe this belongs to your crew. Sanji paused, studying the hat. He recognized it from somewhere, but couldn't quite place it, does it? I delivered this hat to Luffy a few years ago, Namur explained before tilting his head. Someone told me to get it to him. It's important to him. Belonged to his brother, you know. I was told that Ace's last words to Luffy promised that he'd come back somehow. Personally, I don't think it works that way, but they hoped that giving Luffy this would help him emotionally, or something. Who told you to do that? Don't remember, the fishman confessed slowly. Maybe it was a call from Ivankov to Captain Moby? Long story short, this hat belongs to your captain now. Fine, I guess I'll get it to him, Sanji said, taking the hat from his fellow pirate. I don't know where the others are, though. I was out of sorts when I left our ship and dropped my Den Mushi. That's fine, Namur responded, pulling out a snail of his own. I've got the Ryugu Palace on quick call. They wanted a meeting with you all anyway, so we can meet with them there. Nodding, Namur quickly input the number and the snail started ringing. The snail kept ringing. That's odd, the fishman muttered. What? They usually answer by now. The snail kept ringing. I have a bad feeling about this. Just then, a horn followed by a horrible, ear-piercing screech covered the island, forcing Namur and Sanji to cover their ears. The sound lasted for only a couple seconds before dwindling away. Check check, a deep voice called, said voice echoing over the entire island. I live. Perfect. Greetings, residents of Fishman Island and all unwanted guests. Talking to you is Hody Jones, captain of the new Fishman Pirates. And by the end of the day, that will be King Hody to all of you. Hody Jones, Namur hissed. Damn it. I knew I should have kept a closer eye on him. Now I'm sure you all are wondering what I mean, Hody continued. Rest assured that your beloved king and princess are not too hard, and they will remain that way as long as I get what I want. On this island currently is a certain human crew of pirates known as the Straw Hats, the same group that destroyed the dreams of my role model, Arlong of the Sun Pirates. When all of them are at my feet, captured or dead, then I will return King Neptune and his family safely. If you fail to do so, I will kill them all and take the title by force. People of Fishman Island, you have until midnight. May the hunt begin. Save for a few calls about minor bits of destruction, this morning of the Fishman Kingdom was slow and peaceful. King Neptune sat on his throne, regal and attentive, as he and his ministers discussed the goings-ons that needed discussed. King Neptune was a merman of giant height with a thick, red-orange beard and a red nose. He was shirtless, showing off a great chest of hair while a blue tail held him upright. The information they discussed seemed unconnected, but the timing still concerned the royal. There were a string of robberies over the past couple of weeks that still remained unsolved, and the new Fishman Pirates had been usually quiet the last few days. On top of that, reports of the Straw Hat Pirates' explosive entrance were beginning to surface. A call from Namur of the Whitebeard Pirates had confirmed the rumor, dispatching the three princes and the royal gondola to look for them. Though Fishman Island was smaller than most countries on the surface, it still boasted a population of over 5 million. With so many humanoids running or swimming about, even humans as conspicuous as the Straw Hats were said to be, can be hard to find. With all of this controlled chaos and information flow, it stands to reason that many would not be paying attention to the world around them. And with the calm nature of the underwater nation, the guards were quite relaxed as well. In their complacency, the guards had forgotten to truly keep watch at their posts. As a result, the palace had no warning before the attack started. The first sign of trouble began with a bubble growing from the western side of the palace. The bubble grew rapidly, faster than the guards could react, pushing the water from the throne room as air replaced it. The few that were quick enough to try anything stabbed at the bubble with their tridents, but their actions were in vain. The bubble's coating continued to push past, forcing the fishmen to shift from using their gills to their lungs. Oi! One of the ministers called, the minister of the right, who was a seahorse fishman, on whose orders was the throne room filled with air. Only the king or the princes have such authority while in the castle. It wasn't us, sir, a servant responded quickly. His Majesty has not scheduled the next aeration day for another week. Word has been sent to the pump room, but there has not been time for a response. Intruders. Intruders in the Sazah. As if the world were playing a cruel trick on them, the dying scream of the runner the servant had sent echoed from the western hallway. His words, or the ones he managed to vocalize, washed over those in the throne room. This set the company of soldiers there with the king and ministers on guard, but that did not prepare them for what was to come. The humans came like a horde of fictional undead, shambling on unsteady, zombie-like legs toward a shocked Ryugu army. Every one of them looked worse for wear, several with broken bones or bad limps, but each and every one with a bleeding injury somewhere. The one in the lead, an emaciated pirate in a captain's coat that was little more than waterlogged rags, raised a cutlass dripping with fresh blood. Their half-dead countenance scared the soldiers, the fishmen swallowing while preparing for battle. "Find it," the pirate called, "for our lives, find it." "What is the meaning of this, Jammin?" King Neptune demanded, getting up from his massive throne as his soldiers formed a line between him and the invaders. He readied his giant trident, silently hoping he would not need to use it. "Identify yourselves. Who are you? How did you get in here, Jammin?" "Lower the bridge." Another of the humans yelled, this one in the ruined clothes of a paradise merchant. "Do it or he'll kill us." "Who will?" The minister of the left, a catfish fishman, questioned. None of the humans answered the king or the minister as the first row of them came into range of the front line of soldiers. The desperate sailors threw themselves into the fray with a primal scream, bloodshot eyes wild with fear at something that wasn't there but most certainly a threat. Every time the soldiers were forced to cut down one of the humans, it seemed like another two replaced them, a stream of starved people coming from the west corridor. "Your Majesty," the minister of the left called, having to raise his voice to be heard over the clang of weapons. "Something is wrong with them. No person fights like this. It's like they never end. How did they get here?" Another limping group of humans flowed from the hallway, joining the fray. "The West Wing," the minister of the right realized. "Your Majesty, these humans are coming from the direction of Princess Shirahoshi's room." "Shirahoshi?" Neptune asked, only for the implication to hit him a moment later. His eyes widened, crazed with parental fear. Shirahoshi. Taking his trident in hand, King Neptune charged into the battle. Humans flinched, not knowing how to react as the Goliath of a merman bore down on them. The king himself gave a battle cry of, "Jammin'," sweeping his weapon across the small army of pirates. Humans and a couple soldiers went flying from the force, King Neptune plowing into the vacuum left behind in their absence. His shadow loomed over the battle, eyes seeming to glow. "You will regret entering my castle," the ruler of the ocean floor roared. "Jammin', jammin', jammin'." A feminine scream echoed through the palace, the voice causing every fishman in the area, the king included, to turn their head. Their communal reaction was all the distraction the mob of desperate humans needed to spread out, overwhelming the defending army with numbers to the point where they could not limit the intruders' movements. With such an opportunity, it was only a matter of moments before they found what they were ordered to. "I found it," the human yelled, pulling the coral lever in his hand before any of the soldiers could stop him. Nothing in the room changed, but the quiet droning of machines told the fishmen that the palace was now connected to Fishman Island and that whomever had sent the humans was on their way. Such a thing happening at all, much less as quickly as it did, was a black mark against the Ryugu army, but they had simply been outnumbered and caught off guard. The absence of the three princes down on the island looking for their guests of honor must have been the opportunity their unknown adversary had been waiting for. King Neptune, however, could not find it in himself to care about that at the moment. His daughter, the one the Pirate King, Madame Charlie, and the voice of the world had all predicted as being an integral part of positive change in the future over 20 years ago and, more importantly, his precious not-so-little girl was in danger and he needed to protect her. Releasing another yell, he swiped his trident through the humans in his way and charged toward their origins. "Move or I will move you. Jammin', stop him," another of the pesky humans ordered, said man throwing himself onto the tail of the cane. Neptune barely noticed the extra weight, such was difference between the giant merman's strength and the weakened human's mass. The call, however, did attract the attentions of others without a foe to fight. The humans swarming to the king in a desperate bid to please whatever leader had sent them here in the first place. They climbed up onto the royal, tugging at his beard and hair, while pulling his fins and still more knocked the crown from his head. "Release me at once, Jammin'," Neptune demanded, flinging humans from his body. They would not stay down, however, despite the injuries they sustained. A pair of merchant-clothed individuals with swords they could barely lift jabbed the weapons into the king's tail, drawing blood from between the scales. "You maggots, move aside, Jammin'. We can't let you go," another human sobbed, tears running down his face to land on his soaked marine uniform. "He's too strong, I'm sorry, but I want to live." The king batted the bawling marine grunt and his shaking dagger to the side, starting to sag under the weight of all the humans clinging to him. He had barely arrived at the entrance to the West Wing, each pushed forward a struggle through the surface dwellers and his lack of legs, when a new voice entered the fray, bringing the fight to a grinding halt. Well, the voice commented, turning attention to the double-doored entrance where another company of fishmen had appeared. "Honestly, I was expecting to have to wait longer for you dogs to do what you were told, but I guess you aren't quite as useless as I thought you were." "We did what you wanted," one of the humans, the former pirate captain, stuttered, a new gash on his right arm bleeding. "Please, let us go like you promised to." The fishman he was addressing didn't bother looking his way, several drops of water forming in his palm before he slashed it through the air. The water droplets raced toward the human, shooting through his skull before he knew what had happened. The other humans cowered as the new corpse dropped, a shocked, betrayed expression frozen on the face forever. "And who are you that dares to enter my palace, Jammin'?" King Neptune demanded, ripping the shocked humans off his body and leveling his trident at the murderer. "Wait, I recognize him," the minister of the left muttered. "Of course, Hody Jones. You served as a member of the Ryugu army. How dare you attack us? Have you no loyalty? No shame?"
Loyalty. Shame. Hody laughed. What king of joke is that? I never had either to begin with. I only joined the army all those years ago for the training it gave me. Now that I'm stronger, I can take the throne and rise to power where I belong. Fishman Island has no need for a weakling who wants to coexist with humans. He spat the final word like it was a poison, a foul taste in his mouth. That's why I'm taking the throne from you, Neptune.
"You think you're a match for me, Jammin'?" the king asked. He raised his trident, bringing it down to stab the traitor. Ridiculous. You're hereby banished for treason. Jammin, leave my kingdom at once, Hody Jones. Hody reacted instantly, tossing a pair of pills into his mouth before raising his arm. His hand caught the king's trident by its central point, a pressure wave exploding from its sudden stop. The king strained, trying to push his weapon further, but in vain. What? He demanded. Never had his size and brute strength ever been negated so thoroughly by such a smaller opponent. As I said, you're weak, Hody grunted, snapping the point off. Capture them. Coming at his call, a wave of new fishman pirates raced from behind their captain, quickly overpowering the tired and demoralized soldiers. They were wrapped in rope and disarmed, unable to fight back. Fishman pirates swarmed over the king like their human prisoners had done only moments ago, binding him in thick chains. No, please! The voice of the princess begged, closer now. Those assembled turned as the mermaid princess was dragged into the throne room, her wrists cuffed with an oversized pair of metal handcuffs. Dragging her was Koby with Caribou and Vanderdecken beside him. Please let me go. The mermaid princess was a beauty, long pink hair and a full, beautiful face. Her hair was styled so that it almost looked like a pair of rabbit's ears, and her tail was vertically striped in a pattern of pink and red. Her blue eyes were teary, large drops leaving a trail of tears in her wake as she was dragged along. She had inherited her father's size, making the young girl of 16 tower over everyone save the king, which only served to showcase the immense strength of the human pulling on the cuffs. Shirahoshi, Neptune fretted, his arms straining against the metal holding them behind his back. Decken, I should have known you would be a part of this, Jammin. Bahohoho. The captain of the Flying Dutchman laughed. But of course, father-in-law, you've kept me and my darling Shirahoshi apart for 10 years now, but a love as strong as ours can't be broken by something as small as a father's temporary disapproval. But I don't want to marry you, Shirahoshi protested weakly, only for her to cry out as Koby gave a tug on her chain. There's no need to deny yourself any longer, Vanderdecken insisted, a glint of madness in his eye. I'll take care of you. I'm quite rich with all the treasure I've taken over the last decade, you know. Bahoho. Get away from her, heedless of his pride as a royal. Neptune bodily threw himself at Decken, the madman giving a cry of fear as he scrambled out of the way. The giant merman hit the floor with a resounding bang, crushing Caribou and Koby beneath his bulk. Don't you worry, Shirahoshi. I'll protect you, Jammin. Father, the girl whispered, only for her to gasp as a sticky, brown goo started leaching out from underneath the cane. Neptune didn't have time to react before he was thrown away from his daughter. Where he had been stood Caribou, the man reforming from the muck that now stretched across the floor. This has been more fun than I thought it would, Caribou laughed, leaving his swamp out in case he needed it. Koby rose from the muck, unharmed but blinking with confusion, not unlike his regular state of being. Just do what I told you to, human, Hody grunted, turning to his men scattered across the room. Someone find the snail connected to the alert system. I have an announcement to make to the island. This is madness, Hody, the minister of the left yelled. The people will never accept you as a king. No tyrannical overlord wannabe like you ever lasts long. Hody blinked, frowning slightly before stepping up to the minister. A look of rage crossed his face for a moment. The pirate captain pulling a sword from a soldier's belt and stabbing the catfish fishman minister in the stomach. He gasped, instinctively curling himself around the blade before falling over, blood slowly pooling under his body. Does anyone else have anything to say? Hody asked. You will never get away with this, Jammin, Neptune warned them, twisting around so he could glare at the intruders. My sons will never let this stand, nor will Moby. You cannot beat a Yonko, Jammin. That's where you're wrong, the smaller fishman replied, a sinister grin crossing his face. It might cost a few years of my life, but I have the power to rival any of the big names in the world, and I will use this power to flaunt the superiority of the fishmen to all those humans up there who think themselves better than us. The ones you foolishly want to become friends with. Fishmen belong at the top, not trapped down here where we are isolated from the world. I will bring us to the surface and claim it for our own. By force, now break the doors and flood the palace. I'm sick of looking at these whimpering humans. Drown them. But you said, Hody grabbed his trident, stabbing the protesting marine through the chest. The doors cracked and shattered, releasing a torrent of water into the room. Humans screamed, trying to swim upward to maintain their lives even a little longer while the new fishman pirates laughed. Vanderdecken, Koby, and Caribou surrounded themselves in a protective bubble, also laughing at the panicking humans. Captain, the snail. Good, Hody grinned, accepting the snail from his subordinate as he watched the last panicked throes of the humans with glee. I have an announcement to make, and some revenge to take. Goncord Plaza, check, a deep voice called, all motion in the plaza coming to a stop. I live. Perfect. Greetings, residents of Fishman Island and all unwanted guests. Talking to you is Hody Jones, captain of New Fishman Pirates. And by the end of the day, that will be King Hody to all of you. Now I'm sure you all are wondering what I mean. Rest assured that your beloved king and princess are not too hard, and they will remain that way as long as I get what I want. On this island currently is a certain human crew of pirates known as the Straw Hats, the same group that destroyed the dreams of my role model, Arlong of the Sun Perm are at my feet, captured or dead. Then I will return King Neptune and his family safely. If you fail to do so, I will kill them all and take the title by force. People of Fishman Island, you have until midnight. May the hunt begin. The Straw Hats in the plaza froze, every eye around them now staring at them, though the emotions within varied. Some held shock, as if they had not recognized the humans that had been nearby. Others held clear hostility, though those were tempered with caution since the Straw Hats were known even in the depths in no small part to the words of Hachi and Namur. Still others held no emotion at all, as if they were still trying to comprehend the announcement that had just gone out to the whole island. Still more had pity, though it was anyone's guess what motivated such a reaction. There was a pause, but the speakers through which the voice came still gave a crackle, indicating the transmission was still going. It has come to my attention that some people may believe I'm bluffing, the voice of Hody announced. This should show you otherwise. There was movement from the other side of the call, followed by the strangled, dying gasps of several people. My men, a low, booming voice shouted. Hody Jones, you bastard, they have nothing to do with this. I'm just making a point, you washed up giant. You lot down there better bring me the heads of the Straw Hats or the humans better come themselves. Otherwise I'll kill a soldier every 10 minutes until I get what I want. Chop chop. The sound of the call being shut off echoed across the island, giving way to utter silence as everyone tried to understand what just happened. Captain? Coby called slowly as a few bystanders started approaching the group. The Ryugu soldiers with them seemed torn. Duty toward their king fighting against the orders they had been given before the royals' lives had been put in danger. The pirates and Kaku responded defensively, forming a circle with Kami, Papagu, and Ace in the middle. I think we might have a problem. What are we supposed to do here? Grace questioned. They're civvies. We can't fight them or they'll die. Some of them, at least. Billy isn't big enough to carry us all, Nami muttered. The citizens were beginning to close in around them. Those who were clearly sympathetic making no moves to stop their fellow fishmen and merfolk. The crowd surrounded the pirates, pinning them inside the plaza with no clear way out. Suddenly, a giant, feminine hand bloomed from the ground below the pirates, holding them all in its palm. An arm soon followed, bending at the elbow before throwing the group. Fishmen stared, shocked and surprised, as the pirates made an unexpected retreat via random giant hand to the top of the sheer cliffs that ringed the plaza. Holy cow! Usopp gasped, unable to properly balance. Ace laughed, hands up as if on a ride as Billy swooped in to scoop up Nami, Ace in her arms. This was just like the big roller coaster thing on the Saba place. Well, that's a wrench in our plans, Mary offered, using rope to pull Usopp and Chopper to the cliff where she and Robin were standing while the others made their own landings, Nami and Ace on Billy's back. The mermaid that had been in their company, Mina, was nowhere to be found. I don't know about you guys, but I want to fight this Hody guy. You're still as reckless as ever, Mary, Usopp yelled, getting up from where he'd landed on his face. We just got here. Anyway, good news bad news, Mary continued, ignoring Usopp's fretting. Good news. I can feel Sanji again and he's somewhere on the south side. Also, Frankie and Sunny are moving pretty fast, so they're in the water by now. Bad news, this. She gestured to the plaza and their surroundings. Come on, guys, Luffy cut in. Our path is obvious. What do you have in mind, Captain? Brook asked. That hood person is threatening the island because he's got the king and princess, right? So if we just take them from him, he won't have any power. Luffy shrugged, as if that answer was the most obvious answer in the world. So, we'll find out where he is and kick his ass. Kick ass. Kick ass. Little Ace echoed. Luffy, you moron, Nami yelled, punching her husband over the head with the hand she wasn't using to hold their swearing son. What have I said about language around Ace? Oh, language. Ace babbled. That's Kyo, and hand is. Very good, Ace, Robin complimented, bending at the waist so she was eye level with the toddler in his mother's arms. She held up a finger, booping Ace on the nose. But watch your pronunciation. It's okay? Is. 6, right? Mary interrupted. Wrong, Robin frowned. It's forest, not hand or 6. Okay, Auntie Sensei, is now really the best time for a lesson? Amy questioned. I think we have bigger fish to fry. Your timing is spot on, Amy, Coby cut in, though I'm not a fan of the accuracy. He pointed upward to a cloud in the sky. Or at least, the pirates thought it was a cloud.
Their assumptions were proven to be incorrect as the shape lowered, revealing itself to be a massive sort of eel wrapped in bubbles and with a sort of structure built around its middle, a wooden sphere and an open sitting pavilion under a red roof of cloth all surrounded in a bubble. 3 separate figures popped their heads out from above the creature, their gazes quickly finding the humans and extras below.
Straw hats, latte dough. The figure on the left all but sang, pointing their way. We need to get them. The figure on the right nodded, doing a sort of dance, akamambo. Straw hats, halt. The figure in the center yelled at them, the shadow of a trident all but shining in the skylight. Though we outnumber them, discretion may be the better of valor, Brooke suggested. He pulled his guitar out, quickly coaxing a soothing lullaby from its strings. The eel, the trio on its back, and a fair number of citizens in the plaza below felt their eyes grow heavy without their permission, about half succumbing to sleep within seconds. The oarfish fell from the sky, slamming into the corner of the cliff and knocking its passengers loose before sliding off into the plaza below. Luckily, no one was underneath it. The center merman, a buff youth with blue hair that matched his tail, was fighting off the sleep that had claimed his two traveling companions. Usopp hammer! Usopp yelled, smacking the merfolk's head while Chopper simultaneously called, Rosario hoof. The pair of surprise attacks landed in perfect sync, knocking the unprepared youth into unconsciousness. What have you done? Papagu gaped, pointing at the three unresponsive mermen at the pirate's feet. The one on the left was short and round with red hair, the one on the right almost reedy with orange skin. You just assaulted the princes of Fishman Island. What? Nami, Brooke, Usopp, and Chopper, still in his armpoint, screamed, the latter three hugging each other. Chopper quickly got his wits about him, wiggling out of the panic hug to shift back into his brain point and check the prince's vitals. A prince is a king's kid, right? Luffy blinked as their doctor confirmed that they were only sleeping or, in the case of the blue-haired prince, not seriously injured. Oops. Oh well. We'll tell the king sorry when we save him. Daddy's gonna be a king, Ace supplied helpfully. That makes me a prince. Gee. Prince Ace. Prince Ace. Sounds like princess. Prince Ace. Gee.
Prince Ace. Prince Ace. Rum echoed in Jin's mind, slightly out of sync with the boy and for no other reason than to annoy Jin, not that anyone else could hear it.
This s going nowhere, said Monk sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as he ignored the voice in his head with practiced ease. We're out into open and can't stay. Kami, where's this Hody Jones guy? Probably the palace, the mermaid said. That's where royal announcements come from, I think. So we need to get to the palace, Luffy summarized. That's easy enough. We'll then began marching in a random direction. You're as bad as Zoro-sensei, Captain, Coby muttered, grabbing Luffy as he walked by. I don't know how good your observation is, but mine is telling me that there's something way above us, and I've got a feeling I know what it is. That's, Papagu began. That's the Ryugu Palace, Kami offered, cutting the starfish off. You can't get there without an invitation, and not even Papagu has been there before even though he's rich. Kami. Papagu cried. I don't know whether to be annoyed or flattered. The pirates readily ignored him. Clearly, that is incorrect, Robin responded. Hody and his band reached the palace without invitations. I see no reason why we cannot do the same. Like a music band, Ace misunderstood. Okay, but how do we get there? Grace questioned as Nami explained the word usage of band as a group to her son. I may have an idea, Coby began, glancing over the edge of the cliff. He and the others ignored the ringing of a snail in the blue prince's bag. Papagu, you aren't going to like it, though. Den and Frankie turned to each other as the last echoes of the announcement died away, the world around them still. Both Metalman and Merman blinked at the other, as if waiting for something. The air grew tense around them. So, Frankie began. What are you doing standing around for? Den questioned. Locals know where we are, so hurry up and get on the water. Oh, right, Frankie nodded, relief in his voice. He pulled a lever, panels on Sunny's hull opening to expose her paddle wheels to the light. Let's super get going, Sunny. Not quite old or experienced enough to grasp the danger of the situation, but knowing that it was her time to act, Sunny gave a roar and started moving, her paddles grinding against the sand. It was slow work, for Sunny was a heavy ship and the sand of the beach was fine and prone to give way. But the brig sloop reached the water just as a group of citizens and soldiers crested the hill behind them. They're getting away, a voice yelled, but Frankie and Den paid them no attention. Sunny jolted as she shifted into full waters, none of her weight now supported by earth. The buoyancy was a welcome change and the ship bellowed out a laugh that took the citizens by surprise. Rahahahaha, bye-bye. Which way is the sea forest, Den? Frankie called, a surge of pride welling up at Sunny's outburst. Apparently, it had been the stress of being beached and losing Sanji that had limited her young mindset. Now that Sunny was in the water and with a member of the crew, she was back in top form. Language pronunciation if not full vocabulary included. Idly, the cyborg compared his pride to that of a parent watching their child. Was the situation that different? Frankie created the thousand Sunny in every way, from blueprints to building. Even with Iceberg's help, Frankie was Sunny's shipwright, but how does a living ship view that bond?
Head south, Den yelled, his answer cutting off the cyborg's mental questions. I'll warn you, it's not going to be a fun ride unless you've got a bubble coral. It will take us almost 15 minutes after we submerge and the currents take over to get us to the sea forest.
My workshop is airtight and most everything else is waterproof, Frankie responded, turning the rudder to correct their path. Once we start going down, we can jump in there and I'll show you what I'm working on. We can trust Sunny to follow the currents. Sounds good to me. Raw, Sunny called. She zigzagged, whipping the rudder back and forth on her own accord. Ropes shot down from above, smacking against the top of the water before coming back up and repeating the process. What is it, Sunny? Frankie demanded, letting the ship do as she pleased because there must be a reason. People. The ship answered simply. In the water, attack rudder and try to climb.
I didn't think they would go so far, Den commented, leaning over the railing to get a look at their attackers. They were mostly untrained citizens, though one or two Ryugu soldiers seemed to be directing them. That said, they had never tried fighting something like a sentient ship before. Still, the Sunny would have to shake them off before reaching the current or the people would know their hiding place.
Give me a long rope, Den yelled, a coil falling into his hands. I'm going in. You don't have to, Frankie tried, though he seemed stumped on what to do with the assault. He couldn't do anything that would hurt civilians, much less anything deadly, severely limiting his options. I'll be back in a moment, the merman grinned. The only thing in the ocean that comes close to a mermaid's speed is that of a merman. His piece said. Den dove over the side, hitting the water with nary a splash. Running to the side, Frankie caught glimpses of the brown of Den's tail as the brother of his mentor literally swam circles around the attacking group. The rope pulled tighter with each pass until nearly every citizen was clustered together inside the rope. Unable to get the room needed to swim, the bundle of merfolk and fishmen started sinking, those who had escaped the rope being forced to try to support those trapped. Den returned to the deck with a powerful leap and a smirk, shaking water off himself and recovering his bubble tube. That should keep them busy long enough for us to get away, ha ha ha. As Tom would say, you did that with gusto, Frankie responded, super. Current ahead, Sunny warned, picking up speed as the water below her started moving. Thanks, Sunny, Frankie nodded, retracting the ship's paddle wheels and making a slight adjustment to their course. How's this super gonna work, Den? It's not going to be fun. So, that no good, hateful, little lowlife, Namur yelled, the last vestiges of Hodi's demand fading into the air around them. Namur felt an eye twitch, the fishman turning to drive a fist into the closest surface. The hole he put into the cliff beside him smoked faintly, cracks zigzagging up its side until a section of it to the left came loose, the stone sliding down freely until it hit the sand and water with a puff. When I get my hands on him. I don't like this, Sanji agreed, much more calm as he tried to understand everything, still smoking as he usually did. So this Hody Jones guy has taken hostages from the royal family, those of the king and the page. He trailed off, his eyes going unfocused as his brain finally started catching up to what he was saying. The MMM mermaid PP princess. He exploded into a tornado of hearts and noodle-like flailing, his mind forming 12.5 different images of what the princess may look like and how Sanji was going to save her to become her knight in shining armor. You stop that, the Whitebeard pirate warned, rounding on the human. Straw hat or not, Princess Shirahoshi is a national treasure to our race. I won't let you. Shirahoshi, Sanji gasped, turning to the light in the sky as if all his prayers had been answered at the same time. His eyes turned to hearts, beating with the rhythm of his own. A name so melodic must belong to a woman of unequal beauty. Get it together, Namur yelled, punching Sanji over the head. The hit drove the cook's face into the sand. Princess Shirahoshi is called the most beautiful mermaid in the kingdom for good reason, but we have much bigger things to deal with than you trying to sign your own death warrant by making gaga eyes at our princess from across the island. She's only 16, anyway. He took a breath, trying to calm himself so he could think about the situation rationally, a skill that had served him well many times over as a pirate of notoriety in the oceans that made no sense. Hody must have King Neptune and the princess held in the royal palace. He couldn't hide them anywhere else, and that's where the announcement came from. What we need is a way up there. Luckily for us, I have some connections that should get us there. Namur turned to his snail, dialing another. The invertebrate's eyes perked up, though they were unfocused as it tried to connect with one certain member of its kind. The snail rang for nearly a minute, no answer forthcoming. Oh, not them, too, Namur growled, his eye twitching as he tried to not take his anger out on the poor creature. Damn, something must have happened to them. I hope they're okay. So that's a bust, then? Sanji asked, raising one eyebrow. I don't suppose you have any other brilliant ideas, do you? I could skywalk my way up, but I don't think I could make it that high alone, much less carrying you. As a matter of fact, I do have one more contact, Namur answered with a touch of defensiveness. We'll have to meet him in person, and I don't think I'll like the method, but he should have something that can help us get up to the water bridge connecting Ryugu Palace to the island. As a pirate, you might take interest in Fishman Island's underground, the organization of Challenger Deep. Yahoo! Luffy cheered, Ace riding his father's shoulders as the two stood on the head of a floating eel. Specifically, said eel was the same fish the princes of Fishman Island had been riding on when Brook put them to sleep with his music. But Luffy had quickly awoken the beast and forced it into submission with his conqueror's haki. Now he and most of his crew along with Kami and Papagu were on the way to the water tunnel connecting Fishman Island to the Ryugu Palace. Down below, dozens of fishmen roamed the streets, combing every alley for the pirates hiding in plain sight above them. Luffy Chin likes being in the front, doesn't he? Kami asked with a voice far too nonchalant for the situation happening in her home nation. The mermaid and her friends watched Luffy and his son as they rocked back and forth on the eel's head, the pair singing a certain old pirate shanty. Brook quietly strummed along, keeping his music's volume under that of the conversation. Kami already knew everyone save for a certain former spy, though Kaku wasn't able to introduce himself since having his voice stolen. It's a habit of his, Nami confirmed, one eye making sure nothing happened to Ace due to his precarious position. It wasn't nearly as dangerous as Nami believed it to be. She knew Luffy wouldn't let anything happen, but Ace being so close to a potential fall still set her motherly worries aflame. Ace had had plenty of dangerous falls Nami had to save him from in his own childish attempts to copy the stories she had told of their adventures before him. Sitting in his captain's seat, has dropped Luffy into the ocean more than once. Good times, Mary sighed, remembering how relaxing the captain's weight felt on her figurehead back when she was still a ship. Once, Captain Luffy managed to grab my horn with an arm as he fell, but we were going against the current and he was dragged all the way to the stern and Sanji hit him with the rudder. A lot. I don't think it was an accident, either, Robin chuckled, half a dozen eyes and hands thumbing through the royal documents that had been scattered with the eel's fall. Hadn't you ordered some sort of romantic dinner for just the two of you that day, Nami? Sanji wouldn't do something for such a pretty reason, Chopper cried. Yes he would, Jin, Usopp, Coby, Grace, Amy, Mary, and Nami countered. Yo-ho-ho, Brook laughed, Kaku silently chuckling beside him. I wish I had been there to see such a thing. How can you all be so calm? Papagu demanded, jumping up from his plush sheet. He turned an appendage on the pirates, his mouth in a scowl. Not only have you attacked the princes, but you stole the royal gondola, too. After all this, there's no way you'll be welcome on the island. We and the island have been given an ultimatum, Coby responded, taking the time to polish and maintain his Sabaku no Kiba. He did not turn to look at the echinoderm, as if certain that his words were simply the obvious. At this point, it's desperate times and desperate measures. Either we'll win and then can apologize or we'll lose and our crimes won't matter. Either way, panicking will only cause us to make mistakes. But the princes could have wanted to help, Papagu argued. Or they could have wanted to capture us, Grace countered, her shoulder coming off of Koby's as she turned to face the starfish. They probably know more about Hody Jones than about us and think we'd be the easiest targets of the two. We're just humans, right? We can't risk getting into a fight with them. At least this way we can get though this only fighting Hody. We can restore our reps later. Kaku nodded, signing to her that she had an impressive analysis of the situation. An apt description, Robin agreed, turning a page. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. The princes have knowledge about Hody and his motives, but we are a mystery. An enigma. They may not desire to gamble the fate of their country to outsiders. Better for us to take the chance from them. I'm not sure I like the way she phrased it, but Robin's right, Mary nodded. Hody is our enemy here, not the kingdom, but that doesn't mean the royal army sees it that way. As far as they're concerned, this is a fight between pirates on their turf. Their land, their way of life, is the collateral to be damaged in our fight and they can't fight both of us at once. Fine, Papagu grunted. Assuming you are right, what's your plan from here? It can't be as simple as, get there and W, right? The pirates did not answer, an awkward silence falling over the group. Gazes made contact with each other, but no one looked Papagu's way. Oh Goda, it is, the starfish gaped, flopping onto his back, we're doomed. To be fair, Amy piped up, simple plans are often the most effective. That one has served us well through the years. Kuro, Coby began, counting on his fingers all the times their plan had boiled down to, get there and W and as Papagu put it, Arlong, Alabasta, Enaru, CP9, Moria, Shiki. We didn't really have plans for any of those. They'd done something or took something and we wanted to stop them. The rest of the time, they came to us. And, in this case, they took TH Island hostage, Jin nodded. Don't know why they want to kill us, but we ain't gonna just roll over and die. This Hody Jones is going down. Whoa, Luffy and Ace oot, getting the pirates' attentions. Ahead hung the tunnel that would take them to the palace, the destination little more than a smudge in the distance through all the water distortion. Luffy, Ace, come back in, Nami called, using a bubble coral to form a safe space under the gondola's roof in preparation of the water tunnel. The two returned to the there of their nuclear family, matching grins stretched over their faces. Alright, let's go, Luffy laughed, Ace echoing him. Lee's go, gee. Namur led Sanji through the back alleys, both keeping to the shadows and checking to make sure people were ignorant of their passage. Sanji's human appearance alone could be enough to start a full-on chase, and neither knew how the populace would respond to Namur when he's been so vocal about finding and helping the Straw Hats when they arrived. He was still a pirate, after all, not a citizen of the kingdom. He hadn't been since he joined Whitebeard years ago. They were making their way toward the shopping district, though a poorer, less crowded section of the area. The buildings were a little older and more run down, the alleys with piles of garbage heaped in the corners. Rats and crabs scurried away as the two moved through their paths. Sanji eyed the buildings, the creatures, and his companion with various levels of suspicion, ready to run at a moment's notice should anything come up, but he stayed anyway. The idea of leaving Namur and going out to search for his nakama had crossed Sanji's mind, but he decided against it. They were big boys and girls and could handle themselves. He was on a much more important journey, anyway. A journey that could lead him to rescuing the mermaid princess. Duck, Namur hissed, him and his companion slipping into a particularly dark shadow as the distinct form of the royal gondola eel passed overhead. That eel carries the king and princes whenever they come down to the island. With the king captured, that means the princes are here. Looking for you probably. That must be why they didn't take my call. Wouldn't be the first time a local government has been looking for us, Sanji muttered. I thought you were friends with the princes since you have their number. You could say that, but it's closer to simply being associates. I was never in the royal army and I've only met the royal family twice, so I don't know where their loyalties would lie in this situation. As far as I know, they've never truly been friends with any pirate, even Pops and Captain Moby. That they ignored my call might mean they think I'm a danger to the kingdom. If they are scared of what would happen if they don't play Hody's game, they could be trying to capture YWE going. That eel's giving me second thoughts, but we're too close to stop here. Come on. It's just another street over. Glancing out into the road and taking a second to focus through the rest of his senses, Namur confirmed there was no one around before darting across the road so quickly he seemed to vanish. Sanji followed a moment later, though nowhere nearly as fast as his older companion. Glancing back to confirm they were not seen, Namur gestured for Sanji to stand as a lookout by the road and tapped on a door, the wood only one entrance of many in the stone around them. He waited about a minute before tapping another tune, this one more intricate than a simple knock. You ring? A voice questioned from the other side as soon as Namur finished. And the call echoes through the void, the fishman responded simply. A slide in the door opened, a pair of beady eyes studying the fishman outside. Bad timing, Namur, the man behind the door commented, we aren't open. We don't have much of a choice, Mitsushi, the pirate responded, the pair of eyes narrowing at the use of the name. The new fishman pirates are on the move. We need to get to the palace, fast. There isn't a single fishman on the island that doesn't know that, the man behind the door scoffed. I hope you have a real good reason for coming here now. The new fishmen are good customers and we can't afford to be seen moving against them. I know you don't agree with them, Namur rebuffed, his voice impatient. Challenger Deep might be underground, but you're still citizens of this kingdom. I know you don't want to see the royal family fall. The eyes behind the slot didn't move, not even a flicker of emotion shining. Fine, I'm cashing in that favor you owe me, Namur grunted after a tense moment. The eyes widened. Get me transport to the palace and there will be another 50,000 bears afterward, unless you want me to rat out your little hidey hole to the princes when this is over. I know about your tax evasion scheme. Sanji's eyebrow rose, surprised by the overall underhandedness of the criminal section of Fishman Island. Smuggling, bribery, blackmail, and treats. It was a game the Straw Hats weren't used to playing as a group, but clearly Namur knew his way around the board. Idly, he wondered if Namur's proficiency was new or if Whitebeard and his children weren't the shining beacons so many thought they were. The man on the other side of the door said nothing, his eyes hardening at the threat. It was a very crude whip and carrot offer, but not one he wanted to test. Mitsushi sighed heavily. Damn it, yeah, I got something, he frowned. Doesn't seem your style and a merchant is gonna be disappointed, but it looks like you aren't giving me much of a choice. Third door down on the right. There's a thing from the surface one of the merchants wanted to study to recreate. It will take you up if you can figure out how it works. Goda knows I don't. Pleasure doing business. The man behind the door grunted, shutting the sliding panel with a thump as their conversation came to a close. Did you get what you needed? Sanji asked as Namur stepped away from the door. Let's hope so, the fishman replied, counting out 3 doors on his right and walking over toward the one the underground merchant had told him about. The door wasn't locked, though it had a padlock closed just enough to suggest such, and its hinges protested as the pirate forced it open. Feeling around for a moment, his fingers touched a rope hanging from the ceiling. He pulled on it, opening several small panels set round the walls. Inside the nooks revealed were large swaths of bioluminescent algae, enough to light up the room and its contents. The room was a sort of warehouse, metal shelves lining the walls between the now open hatches. The center of the floor was open for larger merchandise that could not be kept on a shelf. Namur instantly recognizing a half-dozen different types of weapons on various racks and a surface tiger in a cage, a whip and a broadsword hanging on the cage's exterior. It watched Namur and Sanji with intelligent eyes as they entered. Another cage held a pair of penguins and a third had three winged, gargoyle-esque creatures called dragons from an island in the New World. How Challenger Deep managed to get such things 10,000 meters below the seafloor and onto the island without anyone knowing, Namur was sure he would never learn. What drew his eyes, however, was an item tucked near the front, leftmost corner, a large basket connected to a giant ball of wadded cloth. "You have got to be kidding me," the whitebeard pirate muttered. "A hot air balloon? Seriously?" "A what?" Sanji asked, suppressed memories of giant, pink, floating hearts being squashed by his subconscious. "It looks like a giant wicker basket to me. How is this supposed to help?" "It's not going to help us lie low, that's for sure," the fishman muttered, rubbing his forehead. "Alright, whatever. We'll make it work. First, we need to get it outside." The pair stepped deeper into the warehouse. The tiger growled while the dragons hissed, but Namur ignored them. He circled around the balloon, a frown on his lips. "Challenger Deep must have a devil fruit user," he said, talking to himself. "One with some manner of teleportation. There's no other way they could have gotten these here without someone seeing. We ended up killing the guy with the swap fruit years ago around here, so that might be it. Black Leg, go find us something with wheels so we can move this outside." "Right," Sanji nodded, hurrying past the warehouse's shelves in his search. While he did that, Namur studied the device set above the basket. It was rather simple, a heat dial facing upward while surrounded by 6 breath dials, all connected to a pulley that would activate all 6 at the same time. He had seen this type of contraption before on a sky island in the New World, and a wave of nostalgia for crewmates long lost passed through him. "I think I've got something," Sanji announced, breaking Namur from his reverie. The chef held out a pair of boards, each with 4 wheels attached to one side. "Will these work?" "Perfect." Working together, the pair of pirates set the basket on the rolling boards before bundling the canvas balloon in their arms. They dragged the whole thing outside, steering clear of the tiger and dragons. The basket just barely fit in the alley, but that was enough. "Alright, we're getting somewhere," Namur nodded, grabbing the canvas. "Black Leg, get in the basket. When I say so, pull on the cord." Orders given, the fishman jumped from one wall to the other, bounding his way up to the top of the warehouse with the canvas in tow. It hung down over the side, connected to the basket as it was. Now that it was stretched out, Namur could see that it was stylized to look like an orange fish. Pull. Sanji pulled on the cord, a rush of heat almost punching him in the face. Nothing happened at first save a wavy distortion in the air above the dials. Slowly, however, the cloth balloon started to expand, stretching up and outward as hot air filled it. Soon, Namur did not need to hold it up as the cloth reached its full capacity. "Whoa!" Sanji gasped as he felt the basket shift below him, the wood scraping along the floor of the alley. He released the cord, an act that made the basket settle again, though the balloon stayed full. "Keep going," Namur yelled. "The hotter it gets, the more it will rise, that's what we need." Not quite sure how he felt about trusting his safety to a basket and a bunch of warm air, Sanji still did his bid, pulling on the cord once more. The basket stirred again, this time lifting all the way off the ground. The balloon scraped against the walls on either side as it rose slowly. Then, with a jolt, the balloon cleared the alley. Namur jumped into the basket when he made eye contact with his fellow pirate, taking the cord from his hand. The fishman gave the cord a good yank and the balloon rose higher, clearing the buildings around them. Citizens down below, NSECTS at that height, pointed toward them. "So what's the plan?" Sanji asked, using the heat dial to light a cigarette. "Can this thing go any faster?" "No, it can't," Namur grunted, eyeing a platoon of soldiers below. Hot air balloons themselves aren't illegal on the island since they aren't produced or widely known of, but they do fall into a category of surface devices that must be registered for use. They are rare and registered based on the balloon's image. Hopefully this one is, but he doubted it. And they're hard to steer. We need to get into that water tunnel up there. I hope you can swim." He finished his comments by pointing above them, a blue tunnel of water leading up to a bubble suspended over the double bubble holding the island. They could still see faintest blob of the gondola eel as it made its way toward the palace. At least, if they were going to fight the princes, it would be in an area away from the populace. A spear nicked the side of their basket, turning the pair's attention from the tunnel to the soldiers below. A crowd of citizens watched them from the streets, trying to get a clear view of who they were, but the soldiers had taken to rooftops and were actively preparing to shoot them down. Clearly this balloon was not registered and the soldiers wanted to take no chances. Great. "Get a hang of this thing fast," Namur yelled, a layer of armament hockey coating his hand as he knocked away a trident heading for them. The balloon jolted and Sanji yanked on its cord, sending them higher into the sky. As if in response, soldiers appeared with pressurized blow darts, the ranged weapon specifically used for dealing with vulnerable, airborne targets. Namur backhanded 3 darts as 2 stuck into the basket, just puncturing the wicker. "We're off course," Sanji shouted. "We need to get further. South? I'm gonna say that south. Then figure something out." The fishman snapped, another pair of blow darts hitting their basket. "This is gonna suck," the chef muttered, jumping out of the basket on the opposite side from the tunnel. Before Namur could so much as gasp, Sanji kicked off the air, pushing the basket a few inches to the south. The blonde grit his teeth as he kicked again and again, forcing the balloon toward their destination, Skywalk. "It's working," Namur grinned, surprised at Sanji's ability but finding it normal only a second later. "Keep it up, black leg." Sanji flinched, almost missing a step as a blow dart stabbed into his hip. Blood oozed from the wound, droplets plummeting down on the populace as Sanji pushed himself, paying no heed to how close they may be. Unaware of his companion's injury, Namur watched the tunnel, mentally calculating their trajectory as Sanji shifted their course. When he had deemed their course changed enough, he reached over the side and grabbed the straw hat by the collar, pulling him in. "Excellent job," he nodded, only to double take at the blood. Sanji's skin was pale and his breathing labored. The fishman immediately ripped away part of his shirt, making a makeshift bandage as best he could. "You moron, why didn't you say anything?" "No time," Sanji grunted, the sides of his lips squirming upwards. His eyes seemed to light a flame. "This is nothing, for my goal is to gaze upon the beauty of the mermaid princess. Nothing, not even death itself, would stop me." "Oh," Namur blinked slowly. "Maybe they're all morons, not just Luffy." Shaking his head, the Whitebeard activated the dials once more, sending the hot air balloon higher and higher. They neared the tunnel, Namur pulling a bubble coral from his pocket as he knelt by Sanji. With a push of a button, he formed a protective bubble around the human, protecting his lungs and injury from the water pressure they were about to experience. "Alright, this might hurt," the fishman warned. A moment later, they hit the tunnel. Swirling water engulfed them, the balloon ceasing to function as the pressure began to rip the cloth apart and dispel the air. Great bubbles were sucked into the connection, never to be seen again. Namur grabbed Sanji by the arm and started swimming, praying they weren't moving into a hopeless trap. "Awesome," Luffy grinned, the stonework of the Ryugu Palace coming into focus as the gondola eel exited the connection. Luffy and the rest of the group were positioned in the gondola's seats, a protective bubble keeping them safe. The captain was not the only one marveling at the grandeur of the palace, even Papagu unable to hide his awe at the sight. Light, bending and distorted by the moving water, shone down on the white stone, schools of fish casting majestic shadows over the surface of the palace. It almost looked like something out of a fairy tale. Almost, because one of the front doors was broken in half, a few bloated corpses almost unrecognizable as humans resting on the ground outside. "I don't like this, Don Luffy," Jin muttered. "I think we're walking into an ambush." "That is a logical conclusion," Robin agreed. "Have we anyone who could scout the area without being compromised?" "What about Long?" Amy began. "Nope," Usopp denied, his hands in an X. "I've got appendicitis, water pressure babitis. If I try to subject myself to any water pressure at all, even a bath, I'll explode and die." "Usopp, why didn't you tell me about that?" Chopper gasped, waving his arms. "I was going to say long neck, you morons," Amy sighed. "It's not like he could say anything to give us away and he has plenty of stealth training." "Oh, I'll go," Luffy offered, raising a hand. Me too," Ace added from his father's arms. "No," the rest of the crew denied. "But I'm like a ninja," Luffy insisted. "I can sneak, I've done it before."
"You are the exact opposite of sneaky," Nami told him, taking Ace from her husband. "The Marines didn't know we were on Sabayati for a week. Koby was there for 2 years and the day you arrived there is chaos. Sorry honey, but you aren't quiet enough for this. Besides, it's just about time for Ace's nap."
"No one a nap," Ace whined, though he did not fight against Nami's hold. She sat back down, humming a soft tune she remembered from her own childhood, Ace slowly closing his eyes as the familiar ritual caused him to tire. Brook picked up on the tune quickly, helping Ace fall asleep that much faster with his accompaniment. "If it's stealth we need, then I'm a better suggestion," Grace put in, keeping her voice low. "Both Kaku and I are weak to the water, but I'm smaller and I could use my devil fruit to create a distraction to get away. That is, if I'm caught, which is unlikely. I've snuck into a dozen noble houses across the 4 Blues and they never knew what I looked like." "Nope, too dangerous," Amy denied. "I won't have my little sister." "For Goda's sake, I'm 18, Grace shot back. "You might always be older than me, but I'm not a kid anymore, Amy. You don't need to shield me from the world." But Grace," Amy stopped, a hand coming down to rest on her shoulder. She turned to see Robin at her side, a look in her eye that the blonde could not quite place but still understood the meaning of. Her little sister wasn't so little anymore. "It's hard," Koby muttered, turning attention on him. "I think all of us, to some degree, wanted to come back to the same crew we left like nothing changed. Like we haven't changed. But we did. We lost a whole 2 years of being a crew and all of us are different. I mean, just look at Frankie when we meet back up. Now, we have to accept that and find our new normal. Yo-ho-ho, Brooke chuckled, a single tear impossibly leaking from an eye socket. That was profound, Coby. So we're different, Luffy cut in, sitting next to Nami with Ace's body in his lap, said boy using his mother's legs as a pillow. What does that matter? We're still the same people. We still have the same goals and we're still a crew. We lost some time, so we just had to have some absolutely crazy adventures to make up for it. I would like to keep the crazy to a minimum, thank you very much, Nami countered, showed affection as she turned to Luffy. With you, crazy tends to mean dangerous. Anyway, we've gotten off topic. Grace is best suited for infiltration, so we'll wait here while she scouts the area. Finally, the artist-turned-thief grunted, pass me the bubble coral. Accepting the natural machine, Grace surrounded herself in a personal flutter kick coating and stepped up to the edge of the big bubble around them. She stared at it for a long moment, suddenly unsure. She knew she could trust ship coatings, but her emotions weren't sure if she could think the same when it was just her, especially now that they had a devil fruit. The others, watching her, picked up on her hesitation.
It's safe, Coby said, stepping up beside her. He wasn't quite sure what they were now, but there was no time for a discussion like that, so he focused on the situation at hand. I've used Flutter K several times before when Shaki had me collecting plants that grew on the roots of the groves. The coatings can flatten against walls and even take a hit from a sea king. Just watch out for sharp corners.
Thanks. The young woman turned, smiling at the Rosset. The zone smiled back, both of them looking into each other's eyes. Seeming to forget the bubble between them, both started to lean in.
Ahem. Amy's subtlety coughed just before Koby's nose could touch the bubble. The young man jumped at the sound, a crimson blush dusting his cheeks as Grace glared at her sister behind him. Amy played innocent. Their shared gaze, one angry and the other smug, held for only a moment before Grace dropped it.
Fine, the thief sighed. I guess that's my cue.
That's my line, Coby grumbled. He didn't need his IQ gummies for his additional transformations anymore, but he still held on to some just in case.
Taking a breath to calm her nerves, Grace stepped away from the bubble around the gondola. She kept her eyes shut as she felt the pressure change, waited for the water to steal her ability to move and breathe, but no such sensation came. Slowly, she opened her eyes to see that everything was the same. Encouraged, she hopped away from the giant eel. For the first time in 2 years, Grace swam, old, rusty muscle memory propelling her through the water toward the Ryugu Palace. I didn't know Coby Chin and Grace Chin were like that, Kami commented as the multicolored girl grew farther away. It's new, Coby answered, uncertain himself if it could truly be called such. This stage is, Nami grinned, but the two of them have been making gaga eyes at each other since they met. Nami, Coby whined like a child, his embarrassment exposed by the red of his cheeks. The Don has got a point, Jin agreed, Kaku signing beside him. Without Grace here, however, the spy was left without a fluent translator. Nami and Mary barely knew enough to understand that Kaku was poking fun at his fellow Zone. I don't think you want in this discussion, Jin, Mary teased, turning to the monk. There's a whole can of worms I hear you're doing you best to.
Anyway, Jin interrupted, a literal shock making Mary jump and cut off her sentence. Sanji, Frankie, and Zoro, off by their lonesome, so I think we need to make some plan fair when they get back. Sanji, specifically.
Why? Luffy blinked. They're all strong and Frankie's with Sunny on top of that, but why should we worry about Sanji? He might still be weak from blood loss, Chopper began. We know how excited he was to get here. This is a dangerous place for him. He's still alive, by the way, Mary offered. I know the instant one of you died because my connection to you would be severed. He's not dying, at least not nearly to the degree of those nosebleeds he had on the way down. At this point, however, he's too far away for me to pinpoint his location.
I believe I've deduced Jin's meaning, Robin announced. Currently, Sanji is still unaware of Ace's birth. As if by serendipity, all times when Ace was shown to the crew, Sanji was elsewhere or indisposed. We do not know how he will react, and if such a shock comes to him in a dangerous situation, our chef may become more of a liability than an asset. Luffy nodded along as Robin spoke before, with a smile on his face, asked, Nami, what's that mean? You know how Sanji gets mad at you because we're together? The navigator began. Yeah, Ace is like a permanent sign of that, but he's also a baby. Sanji won't know how to react, so he might not react to anything, even if he's attacked. Oh, Luffy nodded. His mystery feelings will make him freeze. Why didn't you just say that, Robin? She did, most everyone else muttered. Nay, I wonder how Frankie and Zoro are doing, Luffy wondered, still as he's ever been with his son sleeping on his and Nami's laps. Just a short way away, Grace was reaching the outside of the palace. She glanced back, noting that the gondola was little more than a speck of shadow at its current placement. Trusting her friends to be safe, the redhead studied the building, her trained eyes taking in structural details most may miss.
Let's see, she muttered to herself. Assuming standard floor height, it's 7 stories tall, though at least one larger room based on the door height.
Unknown era, but an Uzumaki-style framework. Possibly the original of the design, built to stand up against water pressure and sea kings. Based on the damage, we do not want to go up against whoever did that, but... The thief's eyes followed the cracks from the broken door, her gaze settling on a hole several meters above. Possible entry confirmed.
Casing one last look around in case there were guards, the young woman swam upward toward the break in the castle. She reached it a moment later, just barely poking her head up to peer inside. Through the hold, she saw a scene she wasn't ready for. Scattered around a throne room were fishmen of various species, all dressed in rugged clothing and most wielding swords. They were watching something at the back of the room, a sharkfish man holding a merman by the throat. Said captive was dressed in armor of what appeared to be sea king bones. Behind him were 2 massive merpeople, one with a bushy red beard and a crown lying on his side and the other with long pink hair just out of his reach, and a small company of other soldiers in the same bone armor. Beside the large mermaid stood 2 humans and a 4-legged fishman in a bubble. The largest human holding the end of a chain connected to a pair of cuffs around the princesses, for that must be the princess wrists. All of that was expected. What she did not expect was the presence of a human in green by a doorway on the ground level. 3 swords at his hip, a bubble around him, and a confused look on his face. Alright, Zoro sighed, studying the room around him. Where the hell am I now? Alright, Zoro sighed, studying the room around him. Where the hell am I now? Truthfully, the swordsman had no idea where he was or how he got here, nor did he understand how he had obtained a bubble protecting him from the water in the area. All eyes were on him, the one-eyed warrior attempting to assess the situation he had walked into. On one side were the ruggedly dressed, pirates probably, and on the other were soldiers. Flaring his observation, Zoro also picked up the familiar spirit of grace hanging out somewhere above and to his right. His eye drifted there quickly, moving on when she ducked behind the wall where she was hiding. If she was here, then at least some of the others were here as well. What is a human doing here? One of the pirates questioned, sauntering toward Zoro. He was a big guy with yellow-green skin and barbels something like a pair of whiskers on either side of his wide-set mouth. Well, I'll put you out of your misery so Captain Hody don't need to bother with you. The fishman raised his sword, ready to cut open both Zoro and his bubble. Within a moment, the sword came down for the attack, only for Zoro's arm to shoot out before the blade could make contact. The verde caught the fishman's wrist as it descended, halting the weapon's momentum in an instant so sudden his bubble rippled from the generated current. What? The pirate questioned, trying in vain to push forward and, when that failed, to retreat, but Zoro would not release his hold. How the hell is a mere human so strong? Who are you? I'm really disappointed, Zoro said, pulling his captured enemy toward him.
Unable to use his swords for fear of cutting his bubble, the green-haired man stuck his head into the water and headbutted the humanoid, an almost audible crack announcing the fishman's loss of consciousness.
The catfish fishman crumpled slowly, the water resistance making him fall in almost slow motion as blood from a new wound on his head colored the nearby waters. The shark fishmen in the area, Hody included, felt their senses shift into overdrive as the smell of blood hit them. Zoro continued, unfazed. I thought you all would be stronger than this, but I shouldn't be surprised. Arlong's crew was a disappointment. Roronoa Zoro, Hody Jones scowled, tossing aside the Ryugu soldier in his grip. He took a deep pull of the water around him, the scent of blood growing from both his own man and the soldiers he'd already killed. Finally, one of the pirates I'm looking for has come to accept my challenge. What challenge? Zoro blinked. I'm just trying to get back to my crew. This has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with you, Hody barked, refusing to be ignored or denied. You're one of the measly little humans that crushed the dreams of my idol. It was by the hands of you and you're listen to me, damn it.
Zoro turned, one pinky trying to clean out his ear. The man blinked slowly, unimpressed, as if having just been woken from a nap or very nice daydream by the squeaking of a mouse. Sorry, I don't bother listening to weaklings rant.
Weakling, Hody snarled, digging through his pocket. I'll show you who the weak one is, Roronoa Zoro. He pulled out a handful of black and red pills before stuffing them in his mouth.
Zoro watched passively as the captain of the new fishman pirates hunched over, his body pulsing and contorting as the drugs did their work. Each beat seemed to bulk up the fishman's muscles until he was more jacked than he had been. Another few inches now made him taller than Zoro, and the sheer size of his shoulders made him nearly twice as wide. It's time for you to see which of us is the superior species is, human.
I've literally eaten things scarier than you for breakfast, the swordsman smirked. Goddammit, Zoro, Grace hissed, reaching for her snail only to pause. Calling the rest of the crew on the gondola would also make Zoro's snail ring, giving them away. Shifting plans, the young woman tapped a pocket on her side. Chemicals flowed from within, condensing into a dark pellet with a crystalline shell around it. Her other hand reached for a hollow, thin cylinder she shoved the pellet into. Most of her off-the-fly plan prepped. The thief climbed to the inside of the broken wall and prepared to push off. Way to ruin all our plans, Swordbrain. Nothing really has changed from 2 years ago, has it? Alright, time to bail him out. Down below, Zoro was pinned down in a corner, Hody flinging water bullets in an unrelenting barrage. The human, unable to risk his air supply, had Wado Ichimonji outside his bubble blocking the bullets with the handle. His face wouldn't show it, but he knew he didn't have many options without a ready source of oxygen nearby. While he was certain he was stronger than this shark clown, his strength would not stop his need to breathe. Ha ha ha, Hody Jones laughed, his arms blurring as he sped up his assault. Watch, soldiers and pirates alike. This is the limit of even the strongest humans. This is why fishmen are superior in every way. This is why we don't need to rely on them. This is why peace with the surface dwellers is a ridiculous idea. Now, human, D. Hody's speech came to a screeching halt as something whizzed by his head. He didn't have time to turn to look at its origin before the thing, a tiny, black pellet, hit the floor between him and Zoro. The pellet exploded, an inky black oozing into the waters around, quickly obscuring the human from view. The hell is this? The leader of the new fishman pirates demanded as the cloud of dark started to roll over him as well. He grabbed the water with his webbed fingers, pulling away that which was contaminated, but this did nothing for his vision as the murk simply swirled back in on itself. Behind him, Hody could hear the sounds of his own men starting to panic as the cloud enveloped them as well. He raised his voice, yelling into the darkness around him. What sort of trick is this, Neptune? I had nothing to do with this, the massive king grunted, just as confused but equally satisfied at Hody's displeasure. I assumed one of your brigands inked himself because he couldn't take the pressure. Hody growled at the information, certain there was more to this moment than the king knew.
Someone do something about this go-to-damn smokescreen. The captain ordered. Almost instantly, a bubble began forming on the far side of the room, the film around the air pushing the ink-like compound to the edge of the room where it stuck to the wall. With the area now full of oxygen in a breathable form, the shark fishman rounded on where the human swordsman had been only moments ago, but Zoro was nowhere to be seen. Where did he go?
Don't know, Captain, a subordinate answered, his voice an octave higher based on fear of his leader's wrath. With the air, he could be anywhere in the room. Then flood the room again, Hody roared, sending the fishman scampering away. The dome of air began to collapse a moment later, water washing over Hody's ankles again. Someone find that human or I swear. Well, Caribou chuckled, pointing with his sleeve-covered hand toward the broken door, water pouring in from that direction. It looks like we had more straw hats than just the first mate, Hody, but the cowards are trying to get away. Following the line of the gesture, the shark fishman turned to see Grace struggling to pull Zoro through the water several feet beyond the broken door. She was trying to make some headway with what little swimming ability she still had, her bubble and Zoro's having combined into one, but the pull of the water flooding back into the throne room was keeping them still. I see, Hody muttered, taking in the image as the water rose to his hips. With the current flowing inside, both parties were at a standstill in the current situation, but that didn't mean they should be standing around. Well, what are you morons waiting for? Get them. With a chorus of answers, pirates pushed off the floor, swimming after the fleeing humans. About half of the MND pain as Neptune pushed off the floor himself, using his bulk to displace the water and try to crush some of the pirates. Though he succeeded in stopping some, the rest made it out the door and continued in their pursuit. Of all ways your bad timing could have affected us, Grace ranted, 12 different chemicals on her mind as she tried to come up with more of a plan for their getaway. Her limited swimming skills possible only by the bubble she had were only just enough to keep her and Zoro from being sucked back into the room. She'd expected her black cloud to last longer, but the fishmen's counter had not only nullified her distraction, but it also caused a current she had to fight against. I would have been fine, Zoro tried to shrug off, an action that only served to make it harder for Grace to keep swimming in that moment. I could have stepped out of the bubble to fight. Not without drowning, moron, the artist shot back, gritting her teeth as she pumped her legs. Honestly, at least I know who to blame for Koby's reckless ideas now, you infected him. That has nothing to do with, Zoro's sentence ended prematurely, a trident whizzing through the water over their heads. The pair glanced back for just a moment, catching the image of fishmen swimming from the broken building like aquatic wasps from a disturbed nest. With the fishmen's exit came the end of the loose bubbles leaving the broken room, granting both Grace and the fishmen the ability to swim unimpeded. This did not reassure Grace to any extent, even as her distance from the building increased. Now this, Grace began, is foobar. The scene sent a surge of unconscious, reactionary adrenaline through the chem woman's brain, slowing her perception of the world to a crawl. Zoro was in the midst of a turn, pulling Wado from its sheath in a motion so fluid and quick that it almost seemed to be at a regular speed. Half a dozen connections flashed through Grace's mind, carrying her thoughts from swords to swordsman to how stupid they are to Coby to how the crew picked up Kaku and, ultimately, the abilities Kaku and his original ilk used against them so long ago. Duh, Grace berated herself, finally coming up with a plan to get herself and Zoro to the gondola. She pulled her feet up into the bubble, protecting them as the slow progression of time returned to normal. A pad of hydro-reactionary chemicals forming on her foot. This is gonna hurt like a bitch. Underwater moonwalk. Did you say Som? Kicking downward. Grace launched the chemicals out of the bubble where they reacted with the water, exploding. The resulting force pushed them the opposite direction, just as the artist had intended. She repeated this possess again, securing her arm around Zoro's midsection so the wayward swordsman didn't get blown away, fall out, or plane get lost again. The force of the explosions did what Grace knew they would, jetting them toward the gondola so fast that their bubble rippled, leaving the fishmen in the metaphorical dust. On the other side, however, the chemist had not planned on how to stop, nor did she know just how much the force would hurt, and she was realizing both of these follies the hard way. Phew! The pair slammed into the gondola's protective bubble, tumbling to the floor in a heap. Their somewhat sudden appearance caused the others to jump, with the exception of Ace, who continued to sleep in his parents' laps. "Oh, you found Zoro," Luffy blinked. "That's great, that means Coby won the bet."
You all need to stop making bets when I'm not around, Grace muttered, accepting Koby's hand in assistance. Her legs wobbled, but more from the pain the explosions caused than any weak in the knees feelings she would have had otherwise. "Also, there are pirates after us. We need to go."
"We can't leave now," Papagu cried, waving his arms. "We need to rescue King Neptune and Princess Shirahoshi and the ministers and the army." "We can't fight effectively," Grace countered. "Not unless we can find a way to fill the throne room over there with air that the fishmen can't just get rid of." "Well," Luffy began, turning all attention to him. "We need air, right? And this big eel thing has massive bubbles and that coral turns water into air or something. Let's just get over there and find a way to use those." "You never cease to amaze, Captain," Robin grinned, cutting through the surprised silence of their fellow crew members. "This oarfish is quite large and can move rather quickly, so I'm sure it can be a useful mount in breaking through the fishmen coming toward us." "They're coming here now," Usopp gaped, pressing his face against the bubble to clearly see the mass of shadows approaching them. "Gotta dang it. I guess stealth is out of the question," Amy muttered. "5 of us don't have devil fruits, 6 if you want to count Billy, so that should be enough to cover us if we can establish at least a decent-sized bubble to fight in." "I'll follow ya anywhere," Don, Jin stated. "I don't like this plan," Chopper yelled. "This is not going to work the way we wanted to," Coby agreed. "Come on, eel," Luffy cheered, jumping up and driving his heel into the back of the giant fish like one might spur on a horse, into the castle. The gondola eel gave something of a worried, begrudging answer before beginning to swim forward. Its speed picked up quickly, with Luffy egging it on. Pirates in the water gaped as their human targets did the last thing they expected. Those two caught up in their disbelief or too slow to act shoved out of the way as the giant eel slammed into them, sending them spinning away. "We haven't talked about how we're gonna make this work," Usopp panicked. "Bahahaha," Mary laughed. "Let's go, Luffy, you moron," Nami raged. "You're putting Ace in danger." "Let us rescue a princess, yo-ho-ho," Brook laughed, only for the eel below them to shake, threatening their balance. "Oi, watch it," Luffy warned, punching the back of the animal as close to the head as the bubble would allow. "Grace, where are we going?" "You should have asked before we started," Nami, Coby, Usopp, and Grace yelled, the artist of the group pushing her way to the front of the bubble. She pointed ahead toward the hole and castle. "That's our target," the redhead explained. "Get the eel to dive in there and hopefully we can make a bubble big enough to fight in. How you're gonna get the eel to move that way is the question." "That's easy," the captain laughed, even as the stonework drew closer. "Mary can use her ropes like one of those horsey things they put on horses." "Why didn't I think of that?" Mary gasped, a mixture of disappointed in herself and elated at the idea. Out of my way, I've got an eel to wrangle." "Mary," Usopp cried, but the excitable Klabouterman ignored him as she moonwalked her way to the front, rope trailing from her sleeves. "Let's go rigging art." Bit by bit, planting her feet in a way that could not have been comfortable for the eel, the fairy threw her ropes out of the bubble. Unfortunately, their mount was moving too fast for the ropes to keep up against the water resistance, said rope trailing behind loosely. Mary frowned, coiling her rope for another try. "TCH. Looks like I'll need to be a little more hands-on. Well, it's not like I don't have enough practice dealing with the Frankie family's king bulls." Underwater moonwalk. Before Usopp could protest again, and really, they were going to have an intervention when this was all over about that, Mary was gone, kicking her way through the water toward the eel's head. Its eyes widened as the horned girl appeared in its vision, smiling at it whilst simply kicking the water behind her with flat feet. It was unlike any swimming the eel had ever seen. Its confusion faded into worry, however, when a gleam entered the girl's eyes, her hands snapping a rope taut before her torso. Within moments, a bridle of woven rope crisscrossed over the eel's head, Mary letting the water pull her back toward the bubble while trailing the latroll her return. Soon, she was literally at the reins and able to breathe easy. Perfect execution. The Klabouterman grinned despite the fact that she was soaking wet. Kaku, Coby, and Jin gave a polite golf clap for a stunt well done. And Polly said I'd never need that maneuver. Huh, I sure showed him. Less talking and more driving, Amy warned, pointing toward the castle. With our current direction, we're gonna crash. I mean, we're gonna crash either way, Mary shrugged, completely unfazed at the inevitable outcome.
We are. Kami, Papagu, Chopper, and Usopp screamed, very fazed by the inevitable outcome. Mary ignored them, pulling on her rope reins as hard as she could. The eel fought her for a moment before the ferry's strength won out, tilting their momentum up just a fraction. Not enough for a safe landing, Mary noted, though there was little that could be considered safe in this scenario.
This is gonna hurt. Mary warned as their ballistic ride neared its end, almost to the point that the pirates could make out figures inside the castle. Brace for impact. The eel clipped the top of the broken wall as it passed, throwing debris into the surrounding water. The shock traveled through the eel to the passengers on its back, throwing them as well while also breaking the sap holding their bubble together. For the second time that day, the pirates felt water surge in on them as each grabbed the closest person they could before their chance to do so was lost. Conscious of the one member who could neither run nor fight, Nami ran to Grace and Coby as the bubble started to flood, said Art Thief still holding the bubble coral. Grace wasted no time in kneeling down to use the device. A bubble growing around them as quickly as the water appeared at their feet. The image outside their bubble was not pretty, though, several of their number being tossed around like ragdolls by the force of the water. There was nothing they could do in the moment save hold onto each other and wait for things to settle. The new Fishman pirates would have capitalized on the Straw Hats' disarray had it not brought a threat on them as well. The Ryugu soldiers, king, and princess could only stare as the gondola eel blew out the arch where the door had been before careening to the floor. Bubbles and loose air exploded outward, funneling upward in a wall of white that obscured the moment of impact. Said force, however, shook the room like a quake as the eel's remaining momentum carried it toward the captain of the rebellious group. Hody, for his part, could only stare at the sheer sudden stupidity of the human crew charging his force with a giant oarfish. Unable to move in time, the face of the eel crashed into the shark fishman, slamming him into the wall. Cracks grew in the stone at the point, further comprising the integrity of the building. All stilled after the moment of chaos, each being trying to collect their bearings. What are you morons waiting for, Dosun? Hody's hammerhead commander yelled. Get them while they can't breathe, Dosun. The pirates charged with a battle cry, unimpeded by the water. Only a few straw hats were able to respond, the rest left incapacitated by the seawaters around them.
Zoro had not let the crash disorient him. He tumbled through the water even as he drew his katana. His observation haki flared, locating Robin and Jin behind him. He had little time to act, a wave of fishmen already swimming toward him.
You might as well give up, one of the rival pirates sneered. You humans are so weak, you can't even breathe underwater. Just go down quietly. Zoro, of course, would accept none of that. Falling into one of his familiar stances, Zoro swung. His swords left ripples in the water as they passed. The water then distorted and twisted, swirling into a vicious whirlpool under the effect of the swordsman's dragon twister. Nodding to himself, Zoro sheathed the swords in his hands and swam to his crewmates. Knowing he could handle it, Zoro tossed Jin over his shoulder without much care while cradling Robin's more delicate frame. Glancing back with his one good eye, Zoro mapped a route to the nearest bubble and kicked off the wall. On the other side of the room, Usopp let out a muffled gasp as pirates closed in around him, his body moving on instinct as he fired one of his pop greens. A wall of vines grew from the point of impact, snaring the fishmen who came for him. The attack bought the sniper the time he needed to start swimming, grabbing Brook and Chopper nearby. On a time crunch of his own, the long-nosed man's eyes darted around the room, desperate for an escape. His gaze landed on two bubbles still intact. One was out of the question, containing 3 enemy pirates next to Princess Shirahoshi. The other was next to the downed eel, containing Grace, Coby, Nami, and Ace. Sights set and knowing that his pop green wouldn't last much longer under the sharp edges of the pirates' swords, Usopp kicked, pushing his swimming skills to the limit. Look at this, boys, a fishman laughed, pointing to a large fowl and a woman in a pink dress, both unmoving. We lucked out and got the easy ones. Who's hungry for drumsticks? The insult seemed to click to the bird, the gigafowl's eyes snapping open to glare at the pirate. He stepped back at the intelligent rage in the bird's eye. Billy took advantage of this, kicking off the floor and flapping his wings as he lunged toward the attacking group. His eyes darted about, taking stock of distances and locations before he reached his goal. And then he did, his copper-covered talon grabbing the lead fishman by the chest. Billy let out a squawk muffled by the water before a flash lit up the humanoid skeleton. Smoke would have risen from the man had they not been underwater, but no such thing occurred as the pirate fell limp and sunk to the floor.
Seemingly not satisfied with that, Billy spun, flinging a half dozen of the orange feathers of his peacock-like tail at the remaining forces nearby. They flew through the water like needles, stabbing into flesh with the feather side sticking out. Like a battery, they each discharged a shock upon arrival, causing muscle spasms in all those hit.
Now satisfied that those who stood in his way were dealt with, Billy scooped blonde female smells sweet onto his saddle and swam toward the bubble-containing lizard as person. Red female makes colors. Alpha female calls shock, and small alpha child. Koby, with Papagoo clinging to her shoulder, was one of the first to recover, unhindered by the water in any way. The crash had, however, left her dizzy and knocked her for a loop. She sat up slowly, swirls in her eyes as she tried to comprehend the world around her. Well, a voice sneered nearby, Koby turning to see a pink-skinned fishman. Looks like we've got a race traitor on our hands. You friendly with the humans, girly? Koby could not respond, her voice refusing to work as she comprehended the sword at her throat. The pirate frowned, his eyes narrowing as his short patience ran out. Guess it's gonna be like that then, die, traitor. The mermaid let out a scream as the sword descended, the girl grabbing the closest thing she could reach as a shield. What she grabbed was heavy and rather unwieldy, but both fishmen and merpersons are naturally 10 times stronger than humans. The impromptu shield gurgled as she sword bounced off it with a ringing clang. What? The pirate gasped as the force staggered him. The shield Koby had chosen was a long-nosed human in a suit, said suit's tie having deflected the sword as if the cloth were made of metal. The surprise left him open, Papagoo jumping from Koby's shoulder and punching the pirate square in the nose. Papagoo gasped as the punch cracked the man's cartilage while sending a shock down his own arm. Swim, Koby! The starfish yelled. Swim! Keeping hold of Kaku under one arm and grabbing Papagoo with the other, the mermaid pushed off the floor and swam in a random direction, eyes looking for somewhere safe. While nowhere seemed truly without as where the straw hats were, for the most part, gathering, and adjusted her course accordingly. Finally, Mary tumbled through the water as the eel crashed, her rope lost in favor of grabbing her captain's shirt. The two spun before impacting the wall moments before the eel did. Mary had the breath knocked out of her, the bubbles floating away, but she refused to surrender to the fuzzy unconsciousness that would not require her to breathe. Her fingers stayed clenched around the cloth of Luffy's cardigan. Shaking the fog from her mind, Mary forced her eyes open. Luffy was limp beside her, unable to do anything on account of his and all devil fruit user's Achilles heel. She adjusted her grip, getting her arm around his waist for a more effective pull than dragging him behind. Her cargo secure, the Klabouterman kicked off the wall.
Blurring in and out of view with liberal use of shave and moonwalk, Mary penetrated the bubble Grace had created. She dropped her cargo, taking a deep breath as others entered the bubble themselves. Luffy! Nami yelled, passing Ace off to Koby before falling to her knees beside her husband. She checked him over, finding his chest refusing to rise. Shoving her ear against his sternum revealed his heartbeat, so there was only one thing to do.
She punched him, her fist compressing his ribs with all the adrenal force she could muster. Luffy coughed, water spewing from his mouth and nose as the compression forced it from his lungs. He rolled over, spitting up the last of the water. Don't you ever scare me like that again, Nami muttered, though she couldn't hide her relief, her arms wrapping around his neck as he sat up. What a stupid idea, charging in head first. What were you thinking? I wasn't, Luffy answered, neither lying nor worried about the ramifications of such. It wasn't like they expected him to think anything through, was it? We've got bigger issues, Koby warned with Ace tucked against his side and a sword in the other hand. Koby tossed Kaku into the bubble, she and Papagoo hovering just outside of it, affording them more maneuverability that way. Fishmen incoming. With most of the power users down for a moment, the others felt the need to step up. Their responses, however, were varied. Mary, Billy, and Nami stepped forward, ready to defend their crewmates while they recovered. It was, however, the more cowardly of them that had the greatest impact. Usopp screamed as the dangers facing them appeared, his body moving on instinct as he fired Pop Green after Pop Green into the crowd of pirates moving to attack them. Sure, Nami and Billy's lighting attacks and Mary's short jaunts outside the bubble to throw tempest kicks at the group took down plenty of the cannon fodder, but neither had the sheer area of effect that the sniper's varied plants did. Walls of vines, giant traps with grasping mouths, massive flowers that released debilitating chemicals, all these and some others plagued the new fishman pirates as they tried to get close. The abundance of water seemed to make the plants grow larger than their already large size, leaving the riff-raff of the fishmen out for the count. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Caribou was having a good laugh at all the destruction around him. Ha ha ha. Now this is what I call fun, the tanned man yelled, his arms raised as if gesturing to the chaos. His clothing and face continued to drip, bits and pieces of his body falling into the swamp that continued to writhe under his feet. Pirates fighting in a life and death struggle. Collateral damage without a care. Hostages watching with fear and awe. And only the strongest will come out on top. Caribou, are you seeing this? No, bro, the younger, larger sibling answered, staring toward the princess with a blank look, clearly not sure why he couldn't see the fighting. Sorry, bro. Shirahoshi, uncomfortable with all the fighting and the gaze of the human holding her chains, couldn't help the tears that started to leak from her eyes. "Stop staring at my Shirahoshi," Vanderdecken yelled, stomping over to the pale human and poking him in the chest with one of his webbed fingers. "You're making her sad when normally she would be ecstatic at our reunion. She is my bride, not some whore you'd look for on shore, human." Korobu barely turned, only moving enough to see Decken out of most of his periphery. He blinked, a stupid grin growing. That rhymed. Ha. "You have nothing to worry about on that front, Vanderdecken," Caribou stated, turning away from the destruction to look at the devil fruit using Fishman. "My brother here is too stupid to have thoughts about such things. Trust me, I've tried to get him to experiment with more things than fighting, but none of it worked. That's why I'm the brains. All he's good for is strong muscle." "Bro thinks I'm strong," Korobu grinned, apparently missing everything else Caribou had said.
Wherever the conversation was going, it was stopped suddenly by the sound of something wet falling to the floor. The three turned to see a figure in green pushing himself into a sitting position, holding a woman in a dress against his chest while another man in a soaked brown robe was left on the floor. They were just outside the edge of Caribou's swamp. Nara thought could expand it and suck them into its murky depths.
Well, that would be if Caribou wasn't having so much fun at the moment. Ending a fight like that at a time like this? Impossible. "Alright, come on," the man grunted. "Wake up, Robin. Luffy got us into another mess apparently, so we need to deal with it." "Oh ho ho," the swamp man grinned, recognizing the two men from when he'd last seen them just days ago when Luffy crashed the rally put on by the fake Straw Hats and Zoro, Sanji, and Jin had jumped into the resulting calamity. If it isn't the famous pirate hunter and electric devil. And that beauty must be the devil child, too. Not so much a child anymore, I'd say. "Ah," Zoro grunted, surprised to hear the voice. The swordsman turned on the man, rage smoldering in his dark eyes as they narrowed. "The hell did you just say about my crewmate, you melting mud freak?" "Oh dear, I didn't think you'd get so offended," Caribou smirked, brushing off the insult like water off a duck's back. "Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to claim all your heads for myself anyway. After all, I'm the one that's going to be the next king of the pirates." "You've got guts," Zoro stated, setting Robin aside so she could catch her breath and recover while he pulled out his swords. He leveled Kitetsu 3 at the man. "I can't wait to see what they look like all over the floor." The room rumbled before Caribou could reply to the threat, the floor shaking. A growl, slowly growing into a yell of exertion, echoed through the room. The gondola eel, which had remained motionless after the dust settled, started to move unnaturally. Its head was pushed away from the wall, causing its body to press in on itself. Once there was some space, the fishman who had caused the disturbance tossed the eel's head to the side. "Ha ha ha," Hody laughed, brushing debris off himself. "You almost got me there, Straw Hat. You know, this might actually be fun." Men? Hody's army froze, hanging on to every word their captain said. His mere presence, after having survived being crushed by the gondola eel, was a boost to their morale. "Kill them."